That's
my
okay.
phone. No,
My daughter's opening teacher didn't get there yet, and I'm like, hello.
Do that? No. Sounds like it's bad.
How are you?
Good morning.
Oh, they're not.
I was on the phone. I saw you guys pull up next to me.
Okay.
I was sitting in my truck. Dan ran in. Next thing I turned around, you guys were pulling out. It's like,
Good morning and Happy New Year, everyone. Today is January 17th, 2023. We are convening for our monthly workshop. It has been some time, pardon me, since we last met. I hope everyone got some rest, got to reset, and we're ready to start 2023 off with a strong start. As it's noted, there is a very, very busy schedule today. To my board members, please let me know if you need a 5-minute break since we have a long day ahead of us. So moving right forward, Mr. Renoff, if you want to get us started on item number 1.
So good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. Yes, it's my pleasure, absolutely, to have our Goal 2 of our strategic plan. The Goal 2 team is going to provide us with an update this morning, and Goal 2 team, I know you are enthusiastically ready to present to all of us. So again, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Renoff. Thank you, board members, for giving us this opportunity. Hello, Mr. Dugan. Very happy to see everybody today. And like Mr. Renoff said, Goal Team 2, tongue twister, is very excited to be here with you all today. Goal 2 is really focused on fostering a healthy and supportive learning environment for all. Goal 2 reflects the collective hard work that is needed from all of us to address significant student needs, including mental health, behavior challenges, the impact of trauma on our students' learning, and how we can foster resiliency in our students. We've experienced an exciting year that has been filled with both success and challenge. We believe that with every success comes a celebration, and with every challenge comes an opportunity. From COVID to Ian, our team has held steadfast in our quest to support every student, family, and staff member in a way that promotes belonging and dignity. We are grateful to each of you for the opportunity to share our Goal 2 progress and our focus areas for the remainder of the year. Today's presentation is you are going to hear from some fabulous leaders. Some are brand new to our team, and I'm looking forward to introducing those new members to you as well as our existing members. And we have some special guests, 2 teachers from Taylor Ranch that will also join us. New to our team is Program Manager Brittany Rutherford, Strategy Lead 1, Mandy Coker, Strategy Lead 2, Stephanie Villahakis, Strategy Lead 3, Tara Allen, Strategy Lead 4, Aaron Singerman, Strategy Lead 5, Chief Dwayne Oakes, and our Belonging and Dignity expert, Dr. Harriet Moore. Out in our audience, we have our program specialist, Michael Santagata and Kelly Prieti, and 2 of our teachers, Jessica Zachariah and Laura Gilbert from Taylor Ranch. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this great presentation over to Mandy Coker.
Thanks so much, Deb. Good morning, Mr. Renoff, Madam Chair. Good morning, Board. Strategy 1 focuses on enhancing emotional and behavioral supports for all students. Also known as Tier 1, Strategy 1 is about all students and student services staff. At its core, Strategy 1 is proactive and preventative. Recently, the state updated some required instruction. This update now includes resiliency education, civic and character education, and life skills education. Civic and character education and life skills education that builds confidence and supports mental health are combined to develop and prepare more resilient students. The purpose of aligning these 2 components of statutorily required instruction is to initiate a first-in-the-nation approach to connecting the concept of students' readiness, resiliency, and when necessary, response and recovery. Some components that are included in this required instruction include strategies specific to demonstrating resiliency through adversity, strategies to develop healthy characteristics that reinforce positive core values and foster resiliency, such as empathy, perseverance, grit, gratitude, responsibility, self-awareness, self-management, mentorship, citizenship, and honesty. Character Strong is a key resource used to help instruct students on these various components. We are so proud to serve in a district that works so hard to continue to be a pioneer providing character education to all students. 100% of our schools are incorporating Character Strong on campus. We are thankful that our governor has led this charge with the implementation of character education standards, stating that these adopted standards will ensure that every student has the skills and knowledge necessary to be a great student, a great citizen, and a lifelong learner, ready to fulfill the responsibilities of citizenship and healthy living. Governor DeSantis recognized that these skills being explicitly taught to our students will, quote, enable Florida students to become tomorrow's leaders. Increased professional learning, community partnerships, and family engagement has led us currently to an 88% diversion rate of involuntary examination occurring on our school campuses, meaning our preventative approach combined with de-escalation strategies implemented with students in crisis during a suicide risk assessment is diverting 88% of involuntary examinations from occurring, leading to more time spent in classroom and learning. One of our great celebrations come in the form that our schools implement character education as required by statute, and 4 of 5 staff members surveyed report that Character Strong lessons meet the emotional and behavioral needs of their students. I'd like to share some statements from 2 of our Platinum PBIS schools, Heron Creek Middle School and Northport High School. A member of the Northport High School PBIS team shared, incorporating the various elements of Character Strong gives Northport High School's PBIS team the tools required to encourage and provide support to staff and students of Northport High School to work together, facilitating access to a team that generates ideas for classroom management through team building, developing relationships with students. Rather than using a reactionary approach, the PBIS team at Northport High School is using elements of Character Strong to develop a school culture that uses best practices to create a safe, equitable, and positive environment. As a Platinum PBIS school, Heron Creek Middle School is thrilled to be able to partner in continuing to support students and staff in developing thoughtful and healthy, kind human beings. The lessons are deliberate and relevant in a way that our students can make connections and apply those character traits in their everyday relationships. Our staff look forward to the monthly staff challenges as well. The lessons are user-friendly for all students. Giving students a tool bag of successful strategies is key in developing positive behaviors that last a lifetime. While we love to receive and share feedback from our staff, we are super excited to introduce Ms. Jessica Zachariah and Laura Gilbert, second grade teachers at Taylor Ranch Elementary School, to share with you firsthand a little bit more about their implementation and experience with Character Strong.
Good morning. Thank you guys for the opportunity to come share what we do every day. I'm Laura Gilbert,
I'm Jessica Zachariah.
and thank you for having us come talk about Character Strong. It seems like no matter where you look, no matter where you go, you keep hearing this, what is this Character Strong program that my kids are, being introduced to in schools? So Character Strong is a focused mini lesson that is used to teach given character traits from an online platform that aligns to our character education standards. With that being said, an online platform, it's not like iReady or Dreambox where a kid is on a computer on their own path. It is more of a whole group lesson that is teacher-led and facilitated.
It's also an opportunity to practice how we interact with each other on a daily basis and how to implement those traits in our daily lives.
So why we teach it? We teach it to instill those qualities of successful individuals. teaching them how to communicate with each other, how to communicate with peers outside of our classroom, within our community. How do we treat those people when we have a disagreement, or when we do agree and we have those really big positive emotions like, oh my gosh, I think the same thing. So it's really just setting them up to be successful in their communications with others.
And the way that we deliver this is it's about a 15-minute lesson every morning. We always start with a song, and the character trait is there for 1 month. So at the beginning of maybe the first week, it's a song that we hear the tune to, and we kind of read the words on the screen and we sing along once we know it. But by the second and third week, the students are making connections with the actual words and sentences in the songs and communicating using those words to talk about their feelings and emotions. And it's whole group, and like I said, about 15 minutes. So.
And really using those real life connections, like if we're focused on respect within that classroom, well, I feel respected right now because I can see that you're sitting with your eyes on me. I can tell you're an engaged learner. You're ready to be a participant in today. This is a slide that we would put up with our song to start with, but every school was given character strong banners, and so we kind of had this idea of, hey, we're going to present, let's get that banner and let's take a picture of our kids with it. And so the first thing they see is them with their banner of the month, and with courage, like they read that definition and they said, oh, well, I think it's being helpful. And so some of them posed with their hands like this and like being kind. Some like took on that like being right, being brave, even when it's hard and scary. And so they have their like muscles showing like they're ready to take on that challenge.
We leave it very open-ended so they can kind of interpret it the way that they see fit in their life, which is really great.
But this is their world. They have to own it.
So this is one of the lessons that we taught with respect, and it's called the Tree of Choices. So we taught this in August and the beginning of September, and it's kind of a way to problem solve. And coming back from Christmas break, sometimes, you know, you're reiterating those school rules, and even in January, we're seeing them like, we can do like nonverbals and talk about the roots and then the heart, you know, identifying if it's a small or a big problem, talking about how it makes us feel, and then giving them the freedom of choice to figure out how to problem solve, you know, within each other, and not, you know, coming and talking to the teacher and asking for help. They're able to, you know, breathe it out and, you know, say, I need a minute, I want to think about my decisions or, you know, my reactions. They can talk things out to each other, you know, issues, and even positive things as well when they're faced with those. Or they can choose to move it out and say, you know, I respect you enough to move it out, and, you know, we can revisit this later, you know, we can talk about it on the playground or whatever it may be. So they use their tree of choices. They were taught in August, and, you know, we see it probably daily, that we don't have to intervene, and they find their own voice and they can problem solve within themselves, which is great.
We've seen a huge reduction of like coming back from recess or specials of kids coming up and rushing to tattle about something that happened. Instead, now they're like, I used my tree of choices. I was able to talk it out with my partner. And so they really have this ownership of, hey, I can solve my own problems. I don't need somebody to do it for me.
Yeah, and just being aware, like, we could even just go like this or like this, and, you know, they can turn right back around and say, like, this makes me feel upset when you interrupt me, and, you know, it's my turn, you know, let's talk it out and, you know, come to a better decision. So that's great.
Another type of lesson that we see kind of repeated throughout the different character traits is they will be given an open-ended picture. So this is one that we showed back, I think, in October for responsibility. And you can put it up here, and the kids just have a minute to reflect and use that definition, that vocabulary, to look at this picture and think about how it could show responsibility. And something that like amazes us on the daily is we can look at this picture and we can say what we think it means, but a kid's different perspective and point of view, they can bring up things that make you go, oh, yeah, it does show responsibility in that way, things that our brain wouldn't normally pick up on. You want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, just adding on to that, my eyes directly go to the child feeding the dog, but I remember in one of the conversations that we were having with the students, they kind of made the picture come to life. And they said, you know, she just finished cleaning off the counter and it's sparkling and clean because, you know, she wiped it off and, you know, cleaned up her lunch before she fed her dog. So it's like, I didn't even really think about that, but like the counter is clean, you know, so.
Right. She's being responsible,
Yeah.
cleaning her house. Another thing that Character Strong does is it allows itself for some family communication, some involvement, some connections. When we focused on gratitude, we had students take it home with their family, create a collage to show, you know, those things that you appreciate, those people that you love, that mean a lot to you. And when they brought them in, we laid them out around the room and they got to do a gallery walk with 40 students just walking around, looking and noticing. And what was really awesome about this is you would hear kids that wouldn't normally play together on the playground or make connections of having things in common. And they said, oh my gosh, you like fishing? I like fishing. Let's go talk about our favorite fish to catch at recess. Or so they're building their relationships.
Right, and bringing it home to work on with their family gives them the opportunity to talk about what they're learning in school. Why are we creating a collage? It's not just about the things that we like, but we heard even feedback from families that their student was so excited to come home and talk about the connections that they made just by the picture. And they have these in their take-home folders, and they, you know, we use those daily. So they are able to revisit often, and they have a sense of accomplishment and they feel proud, which is really great.
So those are just some different types of lessons that we have been through in our classrooms. And it's great, we can sit here and say, hey, we love this program, this is why we like it, but we wanted to really say, it's not just about us because it's our kids' world. Do you like it? What do you like about it? And so this little guy says, I like starting my day with Character Strong because I like the songs. It calms me down in the morning, which helps me get ready to learn because we know in houses, it can be kind of chaotic. Get your shoes on, get your teeth brushed, like, let's go, get out the door. And so those kids already start feeling, and we haven't even started our day with them. And so it kind of just brings it down and like, oh, this is what we're doing today.
Yeah, and giving them a sense of routine. We start every single day with the song, and oftentimes our classes join together. And a lot of times we'll go over to her room for the song, and like I have an ESE student, and he relies on this routine. And as soon as we start hearing the song playing, that's kind of like our cue to, hey, our morning's ready to get started. And you know, it's like, we gotta go, it's time for the song, which is really great. Another student said that she likes starting her day with Character Strong because it's very fun and she's learning new things and how to treat people with care. All of these words, we kind of just ask them like, why do you like it? You know, it's very open-ended, and to hear their opinion and the way that they feel about these things, like, really makes us realize we're doing this for a reason. Like, and I think as adults, sometimes we need to explicitly teach and hear each other talk about how we view these words. And, you know, as we're delivering it, it's putting it in the forefront of our minds, and we are much more, not that we struggle with being positive, but we're much more forward thinking in the choices that we make because, you know, kids are always watching.
This little guy said he likes the lessons because they talk about how you can push through hard things and challenges in life with perseverance. It teaches him to be engaged and try his best even when he gets frustrated. And this is huge. Like, this kid has typically in his life not really wanted to come to school. He gets frustrated. He feels like his teachers are disappointed, his friends are disappointed. And this year he walks in our class with a bounce and a smile and like he's ready to go. And it's not to say he doesn't get frustrated and things aren't hard, but he has the tools that when he feels that come on, he's set up for success for that next step.
And I'm not sure that he would ever use perseverance as a vocabulary word to describe the way that he feels if we didn't explicitly teach it, explain it, and, you know, work through examples of how to show those things.
For sure. He is a kid that he's like, what's that word again? Oh yeah, perseverance. I can push through these challenges. I can do hard things.
Yep. This little boy says, I like starting my day with Character Strong because the songs are fun. we also learn big words, and it builds our vocabulary and brains.
So it's really making that connection cross-curricular, right? Like we're building that vocabulary. They can use it when they go to math. They can use it in science and social studies in our classroom or in a specials classroom. We sat down yesterday to start kind of going over this with our slides, and one of our coworkers called, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're not going to believe it. Like, one of my parents just sent me this little kind of thing that they were working on." And so we said, "Hey, can we put that in here? Because it's a really awesome thing." This little boy was outside yesterday, enjoying his day off in the sunshine, playing with bubbles, and then did some chalk. And Mom said on his own, he decided to take his chalk and write the words gratitude and empathy, respect, respectability, responsibility, and perseverance. And so Mom was like, "Where is this coming from? Like, what do these words mean?" And so he was able to give real life school examples and home examples, and saying it's not just the parents and it's not just the students. It really is this connection to build these great characters. So we kind of just want to say, the program's called Character Strong, and that's just what our students have. They have strong character. We encourage, if you ever want to see it in action, every morning, 8:45 to 9, come on down to Taylor Ranch.
Yes, please come every morning.
We'll give you an experience that you won't forget.
I mean, it's one thing to talk about it and for you to see testimonials from students, but like just to feel the energy and the positivity in the room every single morning, like makes me want to cry.
But our kids will also engage you. They're going to be like, "Come over here!
Yeah.
Like, this is what
Let
we're
me teach
doing."
you.
So, but thank you guys so much for this opportunity.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ms. Zachariah, Ms. Gilbert. And it's true, if you guys ever want to fill your bucket and just leave just feeling so full and your heart so full, taking a minute to go into their classroom will definitely do it. Purpose is something that we can share, and it knits our groups together. Strategy 1 continues to evolve, responding to the needs of staff, students, and families. At its core, working every day to create the moments of shared purpose that helps everyone to see that their work matters. Thank you very much, and I'm so happy to introduce Stephanie Villahakis, our Strategy 2 lead.
Thank you, Mandy, and good morning to all. Strategy 2 is all about promoting positive behavior through proactive education and research-based practices to enhance belonging and dignity. The 4 key activities in this strategy focus on creating a learning environment where students, staff, and families feel appreciated, safe, and respected. To do this, we are collaborating with school teams to increase the opportunity to build positive relationships through the multi-tiered system of supports, provide ongoing professional learning to school teams, and ensure follow-up interventions. Our biggest metric is that we had 34 schools awarded model school status for the 21-22 school year, resulting in Sarasota County being the second highest district in the state, falling shortly behind Collier County. Our school teams put in a tremendous amount of effort to earn this status. One data piece that is required for model school is a walkthrough conducted by our student services team to ensure Tier 1 PBS practices are in place. Students and staff are asked if they know the school-wide expectations and if staff have taught the expectations. As you can see, in the 21-22 school year, 79% of the students could accurately state their expectations, and 83% of students could accurately state them this year, resulting in a 4% increase. In the 21-22 school year, 91% of staff members actively taught the expectations. This year, 99% of the staff members actively taught the expectations, resulting in an 8% increase. Receiving the model school status is not just a banner, a sticker, or a certificate. If we want to promote positive behavior and increase time engaged in learning, we must intentionally teach students expected behaviors with the goal of decreasing the number of inappropriate behaviors. Looking at this data, there is a direct correlation that when staff are directly teaching and embracing the school-wide expectations, students are learning and living it on their campuses as well. One of our goals is to provide support to the 6 schools that did not meet model school criteria for the 21-22 school year. Based on initial data collected this year, 4 out of the 6 schools are on track to meet model school status. Currently, 100% of all the schools have Tier 1 expectations applicable to all stakeholders and settings and have identified targeted areas of interventions. To date, 163 positive interventions have been assigned. One of our biggest celebrations is that for the past 2 years, our student services team has offered Summer Splash, a 3-day opportunity for professional learnings for our school teams. During this time, schools are receiving technical assistance with multi-tiered systems of supports and evidence-based Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions and implementation. This summer, all 40 schools participated in Summer Splash, partnering with USF. 21 schools participated in the Tier 1 booster, and all schools participated in Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. It's important to include direct social and life skill instruction along with building trusting relationships with a mentor and behavior coach on school campuses. We have boosted our mentoring and behavioral coaching at Triad, Oak Park, Sarasota Middle, McIntosh Middle, and Brookside Middle School, and will continue to expand to all schools. Brookside and Booker Middle Schools are implementing Capturing Kids' Hearts, a research-based model cultivating relational capacity and strengthening trust between staff and students. All schools have designated a PBS coach and team consisting of parents and students, and the students are at the middle school and high school levels. All PBS plans with instructional guidebooks and character education rollout plans are uploaded to the district portal. We are proud of the work we presented at the National PBIS Leadership Forum on Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions and are presenting at the National PBS Conference in March on these same practices. So what are our next steps? As I stated earlier, our goal this year is to provide targeted support for those 6 schools who did not achieve model school status, as well as maintained and or increased model school status for the 34 schools by attending their monthly PBS meetings and SWIS meetings, implementing the PLC model with authenticity, focusing on the essential skills of collecting and analyzing data and action planning designed to facilitate decision-making. We want to build capacity with our PBS coaches with the gradual release of responsibility by providing professional learning where coaches have the opportunity to analyze their data with our support and collaboratively work with their teams to determine next steps. We want to continue to build on Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions by providing professional learning and collaboration with our USF partnership. We want to ensure that all schools have character development in their PBS plans as a Tier 1 foundation and expand best practices in building relationships and fostering a culture of belonging and dignity. According to national experts in the field, the goal of positive behavior support is not perfect children. Rather, the goal should be creating the perfect environment for enhancing their growth. Based on what we've done so far, we're doing a wonderful job at the school level. Thank you, and now I will turn it over to Tara Allen, our Strategy 3 lead.
Good morning and Happy New Year. Strategy 3 focuses on expanding our more intensive behavior supports within the tiered positive behavior supports framework for students who are struggling with more serious problem behavior. The 4 key activities in this strategy focus on providing professional learning and new behavior intervention tools to the Sarasota County school teams, as well as establishing new district proactive behavior response teams that provide intensive supports to both the school teams and to the students who are struggling with their behavior in our classrooms. These key metrics reflect the priority tasks in Strategy 3, which was the recruiting, hiring, and training of new district proactive behavior response teams. We created teams in our North, Mid, and South counties that are comprised of a behavior specialist, school psychologist, and behavior paraprofessional. As you can see, during the first semester, our teams responded to a significant amount of behavior support requests from the schools, resulting in an improvement in student behavior and a decrease in exclusionary disciplinary practices. During those 428 days of behavior intervention, students were given an opportunity to stay in their school and classrooms and engage in learning. In addition to the newly hired district behavior teams that I referenced, celebrations within this strategy include additional evidence-based Tier 2 and Tier 3 behavior interventions and professional development to go along with that to all of our schools. We have trained approximately 70 additional staff members on 3 new intervention tools and continue to expand our behavior resource map. Based on concerning trends in our discipline data, we have focused on bullying prevention at both the middle and high schools. Beginning this month, all middle school students will participate in a program of bullying prevention that is provided by our SROs and PBIS team leaders, with specific content aimed at cyberbullying prevention. We will continue to expand our high school cyberbullying program next year. We're proud to share that as a result of our work with USF and the Florida PBIS project, we were selected to present this expanded model for Tier 2 and Tier 3 behavior supports, as well as how we use our proactive behavior response teams at that spring international conference in Jacksonville. Next steps will be to continue collecting implementation data for our new tiered behavior interventions, including the district behavior teams. This data will be used to help us with important next steps in implementation and targeting the essential technical support that we know our school teams need. We will be reviewing the established new protocols for the district behavior team referral, the consultation models, and how we provide the direct support to our unique student needs. We understand that there will be adjustments and refining of our work that is necessary to support so many schools across our county. This year, 30 of our building behavior specialists are new in their role, and feedback from them and our building principals has clearly shown there's a need for additional ongoing professional learning, coaching, and technical support to be provided to these new staff members in our buildings. Finally, we have experienced challenges recruiting behavior specialists for the district teams, given the high level of expertise, specialization needed for these unique roles. We will continue to focus on recruiting and retaining the current staff who have served our school teams and the students requiring this level of intense behavior support. Now I will turn it over to our Strategy 4 lead, Ms. Erin Singerman.
Thank you, Tara, and good morning, board members. A goal of this strategy is to help normalize the conversation around mental health because, on average, 1 in 5 Americans are diagnosed with a mental illness in any given year, but yet, as a society, we don't really talk about mental health the same way we talk about other physical conditions. So we want to normalize the conversation around mental health so that staff are comfortable asking for help when they need it and so that they know where to go to find those supports at that time. Another part of this strategy is to increase capacity of staff to be able to identify and address the mental health needs of our students. Deb and I have said this before, that we know that, and the research too, that there's a reciprocal effect between student and staff mental health. When student mental health needs are being met, it has a positive impact on the classroom and on the teacher. And when the employees' mental health needs are met, it's also going to have a positive impact on the student in the classroom. So with those goals in mind, here are the 3 key activities that were identified in this strategy. The first one is promoting evidence-based programs for employees. The second one is increasing the number of staff who are trained in youth mental health first aid training. And then lastly, engaging staff in the character education program.
There are 2 official metrics for this strategy, but we had some additional progress measures that we wanted to share with you this morning. The first official metric is the activity satisfaction. So following completion of an activity, such as a workshop or an on-site program, staff are invited to complete a survey to share their feedback. And as you can see, generally overall satisfaction for those programs is quite high. The second official metric is the youth mental health first aid training. To date, 73% staff are trained in youth mental health first aid with the goal of reaching 80% by the end of the school year.
Mrs. Singerman, can you really quickly expand on what mental health first aid training is for, just for the public that's listening?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you mind if I pass that on to Deb's team?
Not at all.
Okay.
So youth mental health first aid training for our staff is a trauma-informed care training. So what it does is it teaches all staff how to recognize the warning signs that a student may be demonstrating in which they might have some sort of distress in their life. And then it teaches what to do next, not what to do next of our teachers are not therapists, our bus drivers are not therapists, but who to refer the student to. So I can recognize that, for example, if all of a sudden there is an extreme change in your appearance, and at one point you were very vocal in my classroom, and all of a sudden you are not talking and you're coming to school looking a little disheveled, I've learned that those are some warning signs that something else may be going on. And I know one, I'm not going to leave you alone because I'm a little worried. You know, I know how to approach you and say things like, is everything okay? How are you doing today? And then I know to be able to refer to a school counselor on my campus or one of our school psychologists who then can take the next steps in that tier level of training of how to support that student. But it really is recognizing warning signs and identifying those people on campus to be able to refer to ensure that student's supported.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, no, thank you for asking. And also it's state statute to provide the.
Yes, it's also a statutory requirement that 80% of our staff is trained this school year.
Okay. Thank you, Mandy. So the 2 additional metrics we wanted to share with you are the Teledoc mental health services. As you know, we've had Teledoc in place for a couple of years now, but as of July 1st, the benefit of mental health counseling was added to Teledoc. So for the first few months of utilization, there is a little bit of lag for the claims data. They provided 8.7% utilization based on the assumption that 20%, that 1 in 5, need mental health support. I did want to point out the second bullet, which is that 38% of participants reported that they would not have received treatment if Teledoc mental health services were not available. And then we've also shared with you the Total Wellness Center that was opening up as a place for staff to reset and recharge during the day. It opened up November 16th, so this data was pulled after 26 school days, basically. There was 286 prox entries, and as you would expect, high satisfaction for that as well. As you can see, there are several celebrations supporting staff and student mental health. In addition to the programs I've already shared with you, there are some additional staff programs that have been implemented as of December 1st. Our new EAP provider called LifeWorks launched. LifeWorks not only offers the in-person and telephone counseling, but they also have enhanced services like chat support, some self-guided support. If you need to pull in a counselor at some point in your journey, you can do that. And then most recently, the Calm app also launched for staff on January 9th. The Calm app addresses sleep, exercise, mindfulness, burnout, relationships, reducing work stress, all those things that we hear employees talk about. Another key celebration is the increase in staff who are trained in youth mental health first aid. I mentioned 73% of staff are already trained. That is actually up from 38% from the start of the school year, so huge gains there. And then lastly, all schools created implementation plans this year for Character Strong, and the PBIS teams are putting into practice what they're learning during their staff meetings. And then lastly, as you can see, we also have a lot that we would like to accomplish this year because staff mental health and wellness is a priority and we want everyone to feel healthy and supported. So in addition to adding new programs and promoting things that we have in place, in May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and our goal is to make a coordinated effort for students, staff, and families so everybody knows what is available to them. And now I'm going to pass it on over to Chief Oakes.
Good morning. Strategy 5 focuses on developing a safe learning environment. Mr. Enos knows this strategy best as he was part of the team who developed this prior to his retirement. And there's a story about a clown nose if you want to hear that. Key activities. So how do we do this? We start by building trust and relationships with everyone on our campuses by teaching. SROs teach age and grade-specific district-approved lessons in topics such as anti-bullying, dangers of social media, dangers of vaping, bicycle and pedestrian safety, and stranger danger for younger students, and alcohol and drug awareness, conflict resolution, traffic laws, and sexual harassment for middle school and high school students. By doing so, officers build rapport and trust with students and staff. Similar type classes, such as dangers of social media, identity theft, and crime prevention classes are taught during summer school to attendees of the parent university. In accordance with Florida State statute, all public Florida schools, including charters, must implement a mobile panic alert system capable of connecting diverse emergency services technologies to ensure real-time coordination between multiple first responder agencies. Systems such as integrating with local public safety answering point infrastructure to transmit 911 calls and mobile activations. To assure compliance with this statute, we have implemented the use of Raptor Emergency Suite. So our strategies. In 2021 school year, 2020 and 2021 school year, only approximately 10% of school-based staff accessed the Raptor Emergency Suite. As a result of the efforts of the safety and security staff to promote and educate school-based staff on the importance of accessing and using this resource, we now have approximately 50% of school-based staff accessing and using this resource. All SROs have been trained to instruct law enforcement against drugs and bullying curriculum in our effort to reduce the drug, alcohol, and bullying incidents on campus. Our celebrations, SRO's responsibilities are divided into 3 areas: teacher, counselor, and law enforcement. As informed in previous slides, officers continue to focus their efforts on education and crime prevention by teaching classes to students and parents across the district. All SROs have been trained to deliver the law enforcement against drugs and bullying curriculum focusing on students in 5th grade. So what are our next steps? SROs will continue to receive training on the national best practices of school-based policing. They continuously work to build relationships and trust with students, staff, and parents, and develop a positive image of law enforcement. This is accomplished by teaching and promoting a safe and supportive learning environment. In doing so, SROs will continue to develop and present topics of importance, focusing on the reduction of sustained bullying infractions, and continued compliance with Alyssa's law and educating school-based employees of the importance of using the Raptor Emergency Suite in response to real-time emergencies. A safe learning environment allows students to learn and our staff to focus on what's important, and those are our students. Thank you. And next is Dr. Moore. I forgot. She got inserted at the end. I apologize.
Insert. Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year to you again. Clearly, the Goal 2 initiative is to foster a healthy and supportive learning environment for all students, staff, and parents is no small undertaking. Engaging our adult learners, our staff, in a continuous professional learning model ensures that we, as adults, are learning and evolving, as are our students and parents. In our collaborative learning, understanding the importance of building relationships and establishing a culture and climate of belonging and dignity allows us to more effectively determine and analyze root causes of mental health issues, emotionally charged behaviors, and environmental situations so that we can provide the best services and support to meet the needs of our students, staff, and parents in a safe environment. Dr. Ruby Payne, in her work on emotional poverty and emotional poverty for all demographics, found that all emotional wellness is based in safety and belonging, that there is a neurobiological response in the autonomic nervous system when belonging and safety are not present. It's manifested by signs of anger, altercations, suicidal ideations, and much more. MIT Sloan, in their research and why belonging is key to building the new workforce, found that there are 5 attributes that create a toxic environment and culture. They are disrespectful, non-inclusive, unethical, cutthroat, and abusive. Of all 5 of those attributes, the 2 that have the most impact in an environment or culture are disrespectful and non-inclusive. Disrespectful correlates directly with dignity and non-inclusive with belonging. To prevent conditions in which these toxic attributes exist and impede learning, we strive to create a climate and culture of safety, belonging, and dignity to ensure successful learning for all. Therefore, in closing, as educators, we must focus on shaping inclusive environments intentionally designed to foster a sense of belonging by honoring the dignity that is the basic human self-worth of each and every person. And on behalf of the entire Goal 2 team and our school and district partners, we thank you for this time to present this information to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. I know there's a lot of work behind the scenes, day to day, and I know not even just creating this and taking you guys out of your, I know everything doesn't stop when you're here, so I truly appreciate that. And for that reason, members, I want to make sure you have the opportunity to ask questions since they have taken their time out of their busy days to cover all of the strategies. Are there any questions, any comments? Yeah. Mr. Edwards?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to start with Ms. Zachariah and Ms. Gilbert, if I may. I have had the pleasure of being at Taylor Ranch and observing Character Strong in action. So, and I welcome the invitation to go back because it is a hoot and I loved it. But honestly, it is a topic of conversation which I'm sure you're well aware of that has caused some consternation. Let me leave it at that. So I wanted to ask you, and this is another perspective that is a little frustrating to me, is that what often gets talked about at the board level isn't really what happens in a classroom. So, and I love that you're shaking your head because I agree with that. So while I have you, is there anything about Character Strong that you think is inappropriate or needs to be changed, or any constructive feedback so that this consternation can be perhaps put to rest?
In full transparency, we as teachers were kind of on that same fence too. We were kind of like, oh, what is this?
Another thing we have to learn and be trained in.
Another thing. Character, like, I mean, you hear the buzz. And so we were kind of like, I don't know, like, you hear the surveys, you hear, all of this. There is none of that. We kind of said, okay, this is what's being asked. It was piloted last year, and we were like, not us, like, please, somebody else, like, we're not ready for this. Mm-hmm. When it came down to us this year, we said, okay, we'll look at it. We will go in with an open mind. 1 month, let's see what it's about. And if it's not what, is being presented, then we'll go have a conversation. Everything about this is very kid appropriate, very kid friendly. It puts it right in their hands. It's not something that if you put them on the computer and said, okay, here's the website, they could not navigate it, and it's not meant to be that way. Like, it really is just for teacher reference.
And it's all very laid out, the program online. It's very user-friendly. We are able to preview, it's kind of laid out for us, and we can interpret it and deliver it the way that we feel is necessary. It's very routine, there's no surprises, and every day there's like a certain focus, whether it's like a talking circle or an open-ended picture prompt. Everything is kind of laid out for you, and as coming from a teacher, you don't have to dig and find ideas for yourself. It's kind of laid out there for you, but there's nothing that we even like flip to and we're like, let's not do this because it's not appropriate. Everything on there is so developmentally appropriate for the age that we're delivering it to.
Yeah, I would concur with that. I mean, I know Mrs. Giacalone invited me last year to look at it when it was a pilot program, and all I can see, I mean, I did look into the curriculum. I'm not an educator, but I wanted to see what tools were being provided to you. And then I actually got to see it in action. And the traits, to me, are traits that we would want all children to have and all adults to possess. I mean, there's not anything in there that scares me. I know it gets lumped into social emotional learning. Does it feel that way to you?
Not at all.
Okay.
One single.
Any parent complaints?
All I've had is very positive feedback when we let our parents know that we weren't going to be at school with their children today, and let them know why we were doing this. They had nothing but great things to say, like, thanks for being the voice and changing our child's life.
That's great. Thank you so much for that information because it's valuable. Thanks for being here,
Had
teachers.
parents come in and observe too, so it is.
I'll be back. Trust me. It is really so much fun. If you're having a bad day, go spend time in an elementary school. There's nothing better. There's nothing better.
Please come.
Yes, please come.
Thank you, and thank you for that. And actually, if you don't mind staying there, and one part that you said in the morning, which my morning was exactly that, where I came in with 30 seconds left, and so I get that, and I understand how that energy transfers to the kids, and I appreciate for your candidness, and I appreciate you for taking your time out of the day, because hearing directly from those who are on the front lines, I believe my board members would agree, it is incredibly valuable, as is being in classroom. Mr. Edwards, I'm glad you brought that up, because there is a lot of conversation around this, and I think there's twofold. And I've spent a lot of time researching it because people bring it up and you don't know, and so it's you have to do your own due diligence, and quite frankly, it's quite a web. And then there's a part of, is this valid, or is this kind of a tinfoil hat theory, right, for lack of a better term? But I think in our responsibility from the macro aspect, as board members, as the big picture, as the long picture, we can't just disregard it. So, but there's multiple aspects. So what you're coming forward at, and that experience, I think, is really, really important. And seeing the behavioral differences, just because that does make a difference. I mean, when we talk about disruption, even a lot of these elements, when we talk about behavior, even going down to the various strategies, and we'll get there in a minute. But so I, as a mom of 3 little kids, I can definitely understand it. I think all of us will celebrate any kind of tools that help us be better communicators, better channeling our energy to be focused and positive. I mean, those are all wonderful things. I don't think anyone literally could dispute that. And so and also from the educator standpoint, and I appreciate you saying this, is, oh my gosh, it's one more thing. And I don't take that lightly, where the professional development to go down this path was a huge investment of resources, not financially, but time. And I applaud everyone for jumping in, because while I know that this district wants to hear and leans in to hear feedback, at the end of the day, the final decision wasn't ultimately made at your level. And that's multiple things. And so I appreciate a lot of the willingness to say, all right, we're going to do that. But I also want to make sure that you know that at any time that it's open dialogue, we do want to hear that feedback. And I know that the administration supports that as well. The part that I am challenged, and this is not related to you, this is kind of the other part of it, is that how do we evaluate this where there are concerns, and taking that with merit? One question I have for you guys, because the data, the surveys were brought up, and I know that's been back and forth, a lot of conversations, so thank you for concurring on that, or confirming, excuse me. But when you say, and so I know a lot of these plans are pushed towards the teacher role, right? Do you put in any information, like does it create your, does it push it out, like today you're gonna talk about this, or do you pick?
They're separated into months. So each month is one like specific word. So that's kind of our focus, but they kind of encompass, they build on top of each other, basically. So it is a character trait for each month that we kind of focus on, but it really like all of it, it's really.
And when you go in to look at the plans, it is laid out there. They do have certain lessons, you know, laid out, like you could talk about this. It's not something that if you're like, oh man, I really don't feel like my kids are here, that you have to do. Like you have to take in that student response and know your kids to know what you're teaching.
And I really appreciate that it's not like a script that you
Right.
read from. It's genuine and like coming from people that are very passionate about what they do. You have that freedom to take, you know, a talking circle or just an open-ended picture, and you can communicate it the way that you wish to. And if you need to guide them on perseverance because they're not quite sure what it means yet, you know, you can. But if it's more like respect or responsibility, they hear those words, but sometimes they don't connect it into not just academics, but like being at home as well. You're able to like kind of aid in those conversations and kind of help with that, but they are also able to bring in their ideas. So sometimes our plans don't go exactly how we have them.
Who's
laid
due?
out. Right. But it all creates such a great and comfortable, the kids even call it a comfortable place to share.
And so thank you. And so that's why, and that again, I think the customization is really important because it's not authentic if you're reading from a script.
Sure.
The other part though is there any element within this that helps guide when you look at your classroom? Is there any data input from the teacher's aspect of what you're experiencing? Is it only given to you in one direction, or is there any integration that you guys provide data just to guide where you may be going?
I don't know that we like give data to somebody personally.
Or on the platform.
We don't input it there at all. But
Okay.
what we can say is like we can see our referrals or our calls to the office for support going away.
Yeah.
You know, we have kids that they're like, oh man, you know, right away behavior, and we haven't had to make a single call this year. And it really does come down to that tree of choices and bringing it back so that they can self-regulate.
Awesome. No, thank you. I'm sorry, and thank you for taking my questions unexpectedly. And again, I think it is important to hear directly from those, and not just parents, but also our educators who are asked to do this. And I do appreciate that if there was any kind of element that you are concerned about, I hope you always feel welcome to bring that forward or bring forward a alternative scenario of how to, or even recommendations of how to alleviate the misunderstandings. As a board member, and I see other board members here, so I'll cut this off. I wanted to say, but I do want to have a larger conversation with the district, the board, as it relates to this, so that, but I wanted to clarify that was not in no way, as those conversations take place, in relation to the hard work you guys have done. Mr. Edwards.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Ziegler. I appreciate that there's always feedback that we want to hear from our parents and our public, but it is the classroom and the teachers where I place my highest level of credibility, and in the grand scope of 46,000 students, compared to the amount of consternation, it seems like a very good program as I've seen it. Okay, thank you so much. I do have other questions on other strategies. Strategy 2, if I can. The first bullet point, increase the number of students receiving check-in and check-out. How many are we now? And what's your plan for increase? I'm kind of specific data requirements. You'll see I'll ask other questions in the same vein. I just want to kind of get and by the way, From last year's presentation, this happened when we went over goal 1. I saw huge improvements, and I love the continuity of the conversations. I hope you guys do too. I saw huge improvements from what you guys saw last year was just like, oh my God, now I have all this stuff to do. Where do I start? And today I'm really seeing we started way over here, and we're here now, and I'm kudos to all of you. That's great news. So what's that plan?
So currently, 100% of the schools receive that Tier 2 training of check-in, check-out during our summer splash. The data specifically is constantly changing, so we can get that data for you. We don't have that right now, but we can totally get that for you.
Yeah, I think that matters. I'd like to know the stake in the ground of like what are we doing now in terms of what those are, and then to set a reasonable goal of what your expectations are moving forward, because I know mental health is a huge frontier and it's always changing, and we've got to have that stake in the ground as quickly as possible. Strategy 2, which are the 6 schools? Can you share those?
Sure. We have Emma E. Booker High School, Sarasota High School, Southside, Laurel Nokomis, and Pineview.
And what's the plan to expand to all of the rest of the schools?
So what we're currently in, what I stated earlier, is that our focus is to work with those 6 schools. And so right now, based on the data that we've conducted so far, which is our Tier 1 walkthroughs that we did for the fall semester, where our student service team is looking to see, do the students know the Tier 1 expectations? Are the staff members teaching those Tier 1 expectations? And 4 out of those 6 schools are on track to receive that model school status. The other schools, we're working with them. We're going to their Swiss meetings. We're going to their PBS monthly meetings, and their enthusiasm this year is just amazing. We've had schools reach out to us. Pineview is one of our schools. They're like, okay, why do we need PBS? But they are so on track with us, and Brittany and Tara have gone and worked with them. And tonight, when we're celebrating the 34 model schools, we've had principals, that said, okay, we're coming. And some of them, unfortunately, did not get that model school status for this year, but their enthusiasm shows us that they're on board and they're working tremendously.
And I know that what happens is you guys are trying to have an agenda and you want to get over there and do your work, and they're having their own agenda, and you have to try and figure out where can we meet and how can we. I get it. It's hard to insert into their day because that's basically what you're trying to do. Okay, thank you so much, Stephanie. Strategy 3, 428 behavior interventions that made it to 84 students. Apparently those 84 students get repeat visits. How do we fix that?
Because a lot of the referrals that we get, really how we've tried to model this for the teams, the building teams, is that when they've exhausted all of their Tier 1, Tier 2, and their own team interventions and their building resources, they call us in. So we do get called into the cases that are the most extreme and do require, we've had students where we had behavior support from our team with a student for 2 to 3 months, where where one of our staff members was consistently in the classroom with that student for 2 to 3 months before we were able to pull back and have the school team implement the behavior plan. So that's the level of intensity for some of the students. So that is part of the data collection I referenced that we need really to guide us for our next steps. Is how effective are we when we do have those cases? Is there something else we could be doing for those students who do require that 2 to 3 months of support? So we're looking at that and collecting data, and just, we really do need to look at some of our processes and maybe refine them for next year. We talked about we were driving the car as we built the car this year with these new teams. We wanted to jump in and support teams. Maybe we were a little too enthusiastic for some of the commitments we made to the school teams, and we will use that data and some reflecting that we're doing to maybe make some improvements for next year.
I think just to add to what Tara was saying, thank you so much for that. One of the really unique things about these teams is that they are designed to go in to help schools build capacity. So they spend some significant time understanding the students' behavior, helping the teams develop a behavior plan that actually is meant to address their needs while changing their behavior in a positive way. So there's a lot of coaching and a lot of feedback that goes along the way. And it's a scaffolded approach. When the team gets it, we start scaling back a little bit each day or each week until the team can really support those students proactively and positively to ensure that their learning is taking place. So that, I think that's a really unique part of our model that I wanted all of you to be aware of, that there's a ton of coaching and support and on-site technical assistance.
So some of those visits may be train the trainer.
Oh, yeah.
And not
Yes.
just interacting with the student. Well, that makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, a lot of that is, Tara has done an amazing job with a couple of the resources. So we've actually have specific professional development that happens in the classroom where one of our behavior team members may show a teacher how to implement a small group in her classroom utilizing one of the tools, and they might model a few of those lessons for the teachers until they get the hang of it.
Yeah, in the fall, we were down at one of the South County schools for responding to a specific request for a student in a unit classroom. And we were talking about some of the initial interventions we were suggesting and doing some modeling and training. And the school principal reached out to me and said, we want this training for, there's a group of 4 or 5 classrooms that I would love to see this intervention in the classroom. Can you come back and train like 20 people from my team? And we did that. So that's the type of capacity we're trying to build. So initially we may get into the schools for one student, but it often turns into more, more networking and more sharing of strategies. And that's really what we were excited about. And also referencing some of the more intense student cases, oftentimes if they were a month or 2 with a specific student at a school, they were also supporting other students at that school. So we tried to be strategic if there were other needs. So if they're in the building for, many, many days, they're maybe working on connecting and doing some consulting for other students that maybe I didn't get a referral from. But because they're there, we want to use that resource really well. So we collected the data as best we can. There's so much more that they were doing then that I was able to get from the Microsoft forms.
See what happens when you ask the right questions. You get a lot more. That's great information. Thank you for sharing that. Strategy 3, the recruit, hire, train additional staff behavior team members as your next step. Yeah. Is that built into the budget? Do we have that already in place? Mm-hmm. I can check that part off.
We have, It's already budgeted. We have 2 vacancies currently that we're trying to recruit for.
Great. I'm coming down to the wire here. Strategy 4, engage staff in character development. That's activity 3. What is that, and how do you do that?
Absolutely. So strategy 4 is a coordinated approach with several team members working together. So again, I'm going to hand this one over to Mandy so that she can share some context to that.
So Character Strong, one aspect of them is character strong challenges that's incorporated with staff. So one thing that Kelly Prady is amazing at, she might have her come up here and talk a little bit more, is she sends out monthly newsletters to all of the staff to be able to send out, if they want, to the families as well, to administrators. Just about every week there's a character challenge that gets sent out for staff. And so Kelly will send that to the character champions at the school. So every school has one identified person that's the key kind of communicator back and forth. So we're not inundating everybody with emails, and it may be an assistant principal, it may be the PBIS coach at the school. And in those challenges, it's just to increase connections at the school. So one might be some research behind, it's a 2-minute video of the power of opening the door and standing at the door when you greet your students by saying good morning to them. So the challenge might be for that week. We're looking to see as we walk through the classrooms, as we walk around, classroom doors open with teachers standing out there saying hello and greeting your students, looking them in the eye. So it's just really increasing the connections between the teachers and the students. And then there's also connections between staff. So a lot of our administrators are incorporating them into their monthly staff meetings that they have, where it's just that power of connection. And similar to activities that Ms. Gilbert and Ms. Zachariah talked about, it's incorporating those activities within the staff as well. So just building those connections.
So that, to me, looks like an enhancement of some of the PLC training that gives you an extra connection.
Correct. And
is
even
there.
even hearing them when they kind of went through that tree, right, of how to appropriately be able to like speak to one another when they're having these PLC meetings, and we're talking about students or important things going on with our work, or being able to identify, if I don't agree with you, we can still have a conversation about that and what that looks like. I feel this way and you feel that way. How can we come to a middle ground with that?
2 more questions, Madam Chair. Chief, working toward the reduction, could you codify that? That
So-
was the working towards bullying, just,
Correct.
okay.
So working as a team member with Tara and her team, Captain Eilerman has been working with them to come up with lesson plans to expand, and I'll let Tara kind of explain what they've done in the past and what their vision is in the future, since Captain Eilerman's been involved in those conversations and not myself. So Tara?
We also worked with Sue Meckler's group of middle school specialists to come up with 5 lessons that we felt were really high leverage. We did not have to pay for them, so there's a lot of information out there. And so we incorporated some of the SRO lessons that had already been created and found some other content that we thought was really high quality and developed a lesson plan. So the middle schools, they actually started last week their kickoff assemblies at their grade levels on the whole concept of, we wanted to tie the bullying prevention and the cyberbullying content into their PBIS plans, into their terminology, into their building-wide expectations. So we gave them the lesson plans, but we asked the PBIS team leaders to personalize it. So, so the connections that could be made, the examples, the kickoff assembly could really be tailored to what the school needs and that school culture. So the feedback we've gotten so far is that things are going really great. And it's a partnership. So we wanted the SROs and the behavior specialist, the APs, the PBIS coach, they could decide, the SRO is delivering all of the lessons along with other members of the team. So the students are getting the instruction from a group of leaders at their school that we thought also fosters those relationships, but gets the content out specifically with the cyberbullying and the concerns we have with the numbers of cyberbullying and the time spent researching and disciplining some of the cyberbullying events that are happening. So we're really excited to look at the data, hoping that next year we see a decrease because of these lessons that all the middle school students will be receiving. Just knowing about, and it's also about fostering safe online communication. So it's also giving them the tools on how to have safe online relationships and communication in a way that's, fostering safety and respect to others online. So we felt it was really important to dive right in and do that. Even though time is critical, our principals were really on board because they see the need at their schools. A lot of time is spent in discipline because of this.
Thank you. I think that's amazing. And what as feedback, I think one of the advantages of having an in-house SRO program is what you just described, that there are, trainings and things that the SROs can be more involved in. I would say that I've seen best practices happening with SROs in various locations, but not necessarily shared. So I challenge you to try and figure out how to do that, and also to see if there are curriculums out there for in-house SRO programs that can be easily turned over. Because I know I go to all the swearing-ins, I talk to all of the SROs, that they really want to be part of the team in a bigger and more profound way. So I'm just throwing that back as feedback. My last question, the fact that Deb is on the cabinet, her position is on the cabinet, is reflective of my importance, how I feel about mental health and the mental health climate here at Sarasota School District for both staff and students. One of the things that caused me great concern when I first got here was the backlog of students trying to get into counseling. Has that, I know that some of our contracts with suppliers of counselors and all those kinds of things are challenged. I just want to know if the backlog has gotten any better? Do we still have kids waiting? Do we still, I saw Aaron's report about staff. That makes me feel good, especially with Teladoc. But I just want to try and get a sense if that's easing up a bit.
Yeah, I want to say two things about that, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mandy. This past year, we were required by statute to appoint a mental health coordinator. And so Mandy has that position this year, and she has been very focused on mental health. That is the biggest part of her job and how we can connect supports and resources for every school. So I'm going to let you answer how we're doing in that capacity. The second part that I wanted to mention to you, Mr. Edwards, in addition to the mental health supports that we're providing, our district now has what we're calling the behavioral threat assessment teams. And our SROs are our key partners on those teams. We have district and school-based teams. So some of the data points and SRO questions that you had, we look forward to providing you an update with that information because we're working diligently on that.
I know
Mandy?
you are.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we continue to work with our community agencies to provide our students with that Tier 3 mental health support. When it comes to, is every single student getting it right away? I mean, transparency, unfortunately, no, we're not able to connect to the in-school therapist every single day for all of our students. What we are able to do, though, is connect our students to other outside agencies. So, for example, there are some schools that do not currently have a mental health therapist on campus because that position they're actively trying to recruit and hire, but through maybe like First Step at one of our middle schools, there is not a therapist on campus every single day. So things we have done to try to help supplement that support is with our First Step contract, if a therapist, for example, is at Riverview High School full-time, that we've made agreements prior to the year starting that one day a week they will go to a middle school that does not have a therapist to be able to support a smaller caseload one day a week. And then we're also supplementing by, again, our community agencies like Girls Inc., who we have in our middle schools and high schools that are able to work with groups of students or individually, or we might make a referral out to teen court or just various agencies that we have those interagency agreements with to support our students. We also have our school counselors, our school psychologists, our school social workers who do not provide mental health therapy, but can help provide mental health support. So if there is a student that our school-based team, and that is kind of how, not to take a lot of time, when a student is referred for mental health therapy or services, it's done at a team level at the school, right? Their school-wide support team has determined this is a need that the student requires to be able to come to school safely, healthy, and access their learning. If we want to make a referral and we're not able to connect immediate to a therapist to be on campus with that student, then our school-based staff works to help supplement that. So they may be working with the school counselor or school psychologist to get additional support until we can fill that part that the student needs. We meet frequently with First Step and Florida Center and review their data and their referral data and their recruitment and how they're trying to increase that. We are partnering with the community down in Northport to host another You Are Not Alone event in January, I think January 26th. Yes, to where we have agencies, all of our agencies that we have interagency agreements with will be there, set up with their tables to meet with families. NAMI's presenting on ending the silence. So there's a session for students and there's a session for parents at the same time in which they are learning again the warning signs of identifying students in crisis and how they can help. So a lot of it, again, is partnering with all of the outside agencies to provide that support. So there's never enough, right? Like there's never enough, but we are working diligently to ensure that our students are getting the services that they need.
Thank you. I just want to say that from whence I first arrived, things are dramatically better. And I thank each and every one of you because you've worked so hard to get as much proactivity as we can to mental health and not just deal with kids that are in crisis, but try to keep them out of crisis. And that was my biggest concern when I got here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I know we're off time, but these are important. And when you look at how many people we pulled out of a regular day, my hope is that we seize upon whatever questions we have. I'm not as concerned about the timing. So if anyone who is speaking after this, I hope you can just respect the fact that we might be a little delayed. Mrs. Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to recognize Mrs. Zachariah and Mrs. Gilbert. Your positivity is absolutely fabulous and contagious, and I can't imagine that your students are in a great place just because of that alone, and I really appreciate you and being here. Phenomenal. I mean, your attitude is just phenomenal. The teacher survey, speaking of that and spinning off of what Mr. Edwards said, that's first and foremost to me, that we hear from teachers, and it's something I've been asking for probably a year, relative to a lot of fabulous pieces that you're putting into place. Have there been any teacher surveys getting formal feedback on any of this? And do we have access to that?
We are sending surveys out to our character champions. And so again, I think to not inundate emails all the time with everyone, we send surveys out to our character champions, and then they elicit the feedback from their staff and respond back. So we do have survey results that we can share with you. I don't have them right now to give you because I did not bring them, but yes, we do survey
Sure.
our staff.
I'm asking for input from all of our teachers. I just want to make that clear. I think having been a teacher for 13 and a half years and, a principal, I really want to hear from every teacher. What you're doing is a lot of work, and there's a lot of input to it, and you two are champions of everything positive, and I love it. But it's important to me to hear from, and I'm not talking about where you're asking, inundating anyone with emails. I think that, a very short survey certainly gives every teacher the opportunity to have input into what we're doing. Again, that's a year I've been asking for that, and I'll continue to do so out of respect of the work and the mission that's been specifically put forth. And my next question is about Character Strong and state requirements. Is Character Strong, Ms. Jackalone, meeting a state requirement for us?
Yes, Kelly Priady can actually talk a little bit
Well,
about.
I don't want to take up
Oh,
any more
okay.
time. It's just a specific question.
Yes, we've
and-
aligned every required instructional component of character education to the Character Strong program that our teachers
So it
are
does
using.
meet a state requirement. That's just very
Yes.
simply,
Yes.
because for time purposes. And what is the, is there a quantity of time that we're expected within the state, that same state criteria, to be teaching those standards that Character Strong is meeting? Is there a collective requirement throughout the year, like 5 hours of instruction, or it's limitless, or is there a minimum?
For character education, there's no exact amount of time that's placed on it. The 5-hour required instruction is for the mental health components.
So for the state character education standards requirement, there is no minimum amount of time for that?
Correct. It doesn't say you have to teach it 5
Okay.
minutes a day or 3
That
hours a
helps.
week or.
Okay, so when the teachers that we were blessed to have here today talked about teaching the Character Strong, is that every teacher in every school? I don't understand. Is it elective teachers?
Every school has their own implementation plan. So this summer, I think Stephanie referenced it in her Strategy 2 overview. We hosted our second annual Summer Splash. So the second and the third day were focused on Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. And one of the outcomes is each school came up with a character education implementation plan. And those plans are posted with the PBIS plans on the dashboard. So each school has determined how best to do to implement the lessons. For example, some of our high schools do it on the daily news. They have a 5-minute segment on the daily news.
Okay.
Some teachers do it as part of their morning lesson. Some teachers are doing it weekly and, in their 45-minute advisory block, but each
So-
school does it differently.
That's where the confusion is coming in. So when you say that every school's specific plan is on a district dashboard, on a
Yes.
school-based dashboard?
It's on our district dashboard under
So parents
PBI's
can
plans.
look to our district dashboard
Yep.
and look up every specific school and see how it's being implemented.
Yes, ma'am.
Are the lessons that are being taught, the sequence of those lessons, I understood them to be monthly. Are those on the dashboard for every school, or?
So the really exciting thing about this is every parent was given a free 30-day access to the Character Strong program, so they can go in and look at lessons, every lesson specific to their student and their grade level. The program that we're utilizing is a tool for teachers to teach. It's not something that the students log into or do. It's not something that we input student data into. It's a lesson plan that teachers review and decide how to integrate. But every parent has access to that portal for free. The company was amazing, gave us a 30-day trial, and that information is posted on our webpage and was shared at our parent night.
So that's at their leisure. So if a parent wanted to take their trial period in March of 2023, they could?
They could, yes, they get a free 30-day pass once they sign up.
That's great information for parents to have. I love Tara, the behavior response teams. I think that's excellent, and the things that you're doing. Having been a behavior specialist, I think that going out and providing that technical support and focus support is incredible. And you talked about that it was fully funded. Is that being funded through ESSER dollars or a grant or ESSER dollars? So this is, the funding then is temporary. It's not sustainable, and we need to know that as a board and look at it, correct?
The positions are being currently funded out of ESSER dollars, correct?
Which isn't sustainable. I just want to make that point. I think it's excellent, which is why I'm making the point. And it's something that when we look at budgets, I would really appreciate knowing when we're doing high-quality pieces that are having an impact. And again, I don't find the reduced, and I'm not saying this in a disrespectful manner, I'm saying it in a reality, experiential manner. I don't find reduced school behavioral referrals as a strong indicator of success. I find teacher surveys, parent surveys, whether it's bullying, whether it's improved behavior in classrooms, which quite frankly should have an impact on academic achievement. When behavior improves, academic achievement improves. So again, I'm looking for data that is firsthand from the people doing the work in the classrooms and across the board, short surveys, not inundating anyone with emails. I'm quite sure that, what I've heard from teachers over the years, not recently, but as a principal, is don't touch my instructional time, which I think that you might have heard a little bit about. Overall work you're doing is phenomenal and obviously taking a lot of time. You talked about behavior specialist. What is the current criteria for a behavior specialist, hiring a behavior specialist?
I need to look at the actual job description, but we encourage, we love our behavior specialists to be ESE certified with specific expertise in the area of behavior. I can pull the job description and make sure.
It's just, it's the same thing as the bus drivers. If we can't get them, we need to look at it. And if we can't get behavior specialists, I think that's something that the board needs to look at in the job description and criteria sooner versus later, considering all the work that you're all doing in this arena, which is enormous. And last, there were several references to the Raptor Emergency Suite, and I know that a lot of the things with safety are not public knowledge, so let me know if that's the case, but I'm guessing that folks that may listen to this workshop might want to know what can we share, what is the Raptor Emergency Suite that we're wanting to increase the number of teachers accessing it.
So it's an emergency notification suite where everybody on a campus, we're promoting that they download it and access it, but it's a reporting app where they can report an emergency using the app on their phone. It's a communication tool that we have during emergencies, and where everybody can communicate. They can check in. Classrooms or teachers can check in on the app as well. And the biggest part is reunification. At the end or during the end of an incident, we can reunificate the students with the parents. And that's a huge tool for us to have, to make sure that the students get back to their parents safely and everybody knows that everybody's safe.
Thank you very much.
You're
And
welcome.
thank all of you for all the work that you're doing. I know how much work goes into a presentation. It's enormous and it's a lot of coordination. And my favorite part is having the classroom teachers here. And we're going to bottle up your positivity and we're going to start passing it out.
Told you we love it. We get teachers here. Thank you, Mrs. Rose. Mr. Enos.
This will only take about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Just three quick things. First thing is in the cyberbullying in the presentation, I can tell you, first of all, everybody's done an amazing job, and I really appreciate it as I've sat down there with all of you guys. One of the things, if you would, is regarding the cyberbullying presentation, since I've instructed that nationally and I did guidance counselors in the school district. But if you would go ahead when you get it, if you could send the board a PDF, because I can tell you one of the biggest things that we get requests on, I can tell you as a parent, is in regarding to bullying in school and cyber, because we know the internet is the devil. And we wish we could just turn it off and go back to where they had no social media, because that ties right into mental health. And, you know, everybody believes everything that's on the internet, and that causes a lot of issues in the schools. So if you could just do a PDF of the presentation and to send it, so that we would be able to also, if we get any requests from parents, because we get multiple, I can tell you I got multiple requests on how do you do it, what do you do it, how do you prevent it. And we know that cyberbullying leads to suicidal ideation, homicidal ideation. There's huge impacts, and it starts where I've seen 6-year-olds that have their own iPhone. Why, I don't really know, but at the end of the day, it's something that impacts all of us. The second thing is in reference to the youth mental health. I know that's something the district that we have been trying to implement across the board to get everybody certified, and that's every person from every bus driver to every facilities person to teacher. If you could just send, if you would, to the board, if you would be able to let us know what the numbers are, where we're at with that. I know there's a 3-year renewal, and go through it every 3 years. You got to get recertified by the state. So if you could let us know where we are on that, because I think, you know, mental health, and I know we had some tragedies over the break of some students. At the end of the day, mental health is super huge, of course, in regarding to safety for prevention for violence, as well as school shootings, as well as suicides. I mean, it's a unbelievable impact. Mental health has been the #1, I would say, issue that we have, period. The third thing is a little bit to follow up with the chief, is one of the things that app does is, so just so parents know, is they can't get it. Their students can't get it, parents can't get it. It's not for any of them, because ultimately it's for the staff. And what I would say is we've been pushing, and I know the chief is pushing. We really need every single person. That's from every bus driver, every HVAC person, everybody doing it, because it's geofenced to be able to identify that when they are on different campuses, that if they're the eyes and ears, because of the speed of the lockdown is what saves lives. The more people that have it during the incident, that's how their communication is going to be. So whether parents need to understand it, that's what we need to be able to do. So that if as a teacher is in the back and pushes the notification, that everybody in that school gets it immediately, because it's the speed of the lockdown that saves the students' lives. It's not really anything else. So with that being said, we really need to try to, again, you know, and I thank the chief and his continued leadership with that, but we really need to have it so that every single person in the district has it. So if you're a substitute teacher, and today you're at Lamarck, tomorrow you're at Emma Booker, it automatically will know where you are, and it automatically notifies that campus what is going on. And I think that is really critical when we look at the terrible tragedies we had at Uvalde. We continue to see these things, which gets into the mental health, which gets to youth mental health identification, which gets back into counseling, which gets back into, and it starts at the youngest grades, where it used to be, oh, it's a high school issue. Well, no, it starts at the very youngest of our students who are under the stress of a lot of things, especially at social media. So if that, you know, my plug would be is for everybody to download it. It's in the district. It's free. You just need to have a smartphone. The training is online. That comes through the school police department, so it's easily to be able to do that. And, we know that that is significant in the safety of our students and our staff to be able to get that notice. With that, I would just say, appreciate everybody. It's super, super unbelievably great work. And, I thank you guys for everything that you're doing.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Marinelli.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and teachers. I appreciate it. Mine's going to be focused on the counseling piece, if I may, and those of you that have worked with me, this question or statement will not be a surprise. Is for me, I need to know that everything that is being done here is going to have a direct impact on student achievement, because that is what everybody is here for. And being a former elementary counselor and being where Mandy is, I take that very, very seriously. So another question is all of this sustainable? This is a lot of people power, a lot of time power, and it takes all of that to have it be sustainable over the years to really make that direct impact. So, and I would really like to see over the next several years the counselor ratio be addressed, because this is unsustainable. So that will be a directive, and I know it can't happen overnight, but we work on that we reduce that counselor ratio. And I was glad to hear you say, Mandy, that counselors, school psychologists, and school social workers are not the mental therapist, the mental health therapist. Their role is to provide the counseling in the school setting. So that's why it's awfully important that we have those outside agencies that come in, not to replace anybody, but to come and assist the students. So also I'd like to make one more statement that the teachers know getting that information as concise to parents of what you're doing makes your job much more easier, because then you don't have all the questions coming. So I appreciate you getting out to parents and you're getting that positive feedback, and I would encourage everybody to do that so it alleviates a lot of the questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Renoff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of, no questions, just a couple of quick comments. So first and foremost, to our teachers, again, following suit. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Honestly, I know, again, your enthusiasm is contagious, but you not only speak for yourselves as professionals in the classroom, but you speak for your colleagues across our district. And I can tell you right now, we are just blessed to have you here today. So thank you so much for taking the time. Also, wow, and kudos to the team. I mean all of you, but I know there's people as part of this team that aren't here that are helping you all work and implement exactly what you presented to us today. I mean, kudos. A lot of amazing work. A couple of things that I heard. First of all, it's multifaceted approach. This isn't a one-size-fits-all. Everybody's involved. Every department, interagency. I mean, it is not just one department that's going to make this happen. Two, it's blended into what we already do. I love what Ms. Marinelli just said. It has to be about student achievement. We are preparing our students to access learning at the highest levels. And so everything that you're doing, it's blended into what we do. It's not another something on the side. It's something that we need to make sure that is integrated and that there's a balance. I heard some schools are at certain levels of PBIS excellence and as far as model school status. Others may not be. Others are on the continuum, because everybody has a balance. There's a lot of things on the plate. And so kudos for recognizing that there's a continuum, that everybody is somewhere on that continuum, working for the best of all of our students. The other piece is it's stakeholder driven. I heard Ms. Rose say about surveys. You are absolutely right. We need to continue to ask and be reflective with everything that we do out in our schools. We need to make sure, is it having an impact? What's the return on investment? And first and foremost, for our teachers and our leaders, How is it impacting what you need on your campuses to help our students learn at the highest levels? I love that it allows for personalization. It isn't one size fits all. Everybody developed their own implementation plan based on where they are. Awesome. It's ever evolving. I heard the word reflective. And last but not least, it's alignment and complement to the PLC work. It's not a program. It's a never-ending process of continuous learning and collaborative problem solving. Bravo.
Thank you very much. Well, I appreciate the time, the energy, the ongoing energy. I think, as mentioned, this is a huge component of this academic achievement and how that tailors around it. The sustainability piece is a very well stated one, because when you think about how much time, and there is a need to invest in time to understand how to identify these things, what are those tools, and what's the balance of academics? Are we spending all of our PD time on this? And I'm not diluting it, but I've had this conversation with many inside the district of making sure that we understand that's a supporting component, but our core component is academic achievement. And we are uniquely blessed in Sarasota County to have so many supporting organizations, but ensuring we balance that with our educators who, I say this a lot when we talk about the education, the pipeline and our teacher shortage. And I feel like this, as society, we have asked teachers to solve every problem that society has, and that is untenable. It's just untenable. And you'll hear me say all the time, I'm huge parental rights, but also responsibilities. So any tools that we can push out as an educational institution, because that helps our goal. So if we talk about bullying and stuff like that, I know Mr. Enos has heard me say this a million times, investing time or working with partners outside so that we can push out information to parents when it comes to social media. I'm a parent and I'm not, my kids are 3, 6, and 9 or almost 10, not in that space yet. And man, I'm gonna go as long as I can, because I am tremendously concerned about that impact. And we all know it is proven, it is data proven, illustrated that social media and those smartphones are decimating mental health, and particularly a young developing mind. And so what we can do as a district to create and insulate our children from that while they're here learning, that achieves our goal. Again, I say this all the time, looking at policies when it comes to restricting cell phone access at the district. I know it's not super popular sometimes, but I think lots of teachers support it because it's not a distraction, but it also supports mental health. We have to look, I mean, if there's any device that we know is addictive, that it is an impediment to academic achievement, that it is also an impediment to mental health, why we aren't taking strong and bold steps to reduce that access. I implore to my board members to take this very seriously, because we know it, we have to illustrate that. I also think that when we talk about supporting families in this aspect, I think there's a lot of information that we know, but to lean on them as partners, we have to continue to look at them as partners. I can attest, as busy parents, they may not know that. They may not even know where to look. If we're already doing that PD internally, can we please push that out? If it's an extra step and work with our comms department, to me, that will be a game changer, and making it easy and simple, not buried. I think, again, that's gonna alleviate the amount of work that we have to do as a district, and then that builds trust and a common goal. And again, our goal is the academic achievement. The last part is what was kind of going full circle, and I will address this because it is an ongoing, as I mentioned, I've invested significant amount of time. I'm not by no means the expert in this space, but believe it's a responsibility of mine to look into what the concerns are as it pertains to character education, Character Strong, SEL, Panorama, etc. There are concerns still to me that I do not bestow on the shoulders of anyone necessarily in this room. I think it warrants a serious look, and it really comes down to the data transferring. And I think that's an element that's more of a legal component that we need to look into, and making sure, because again, this is not the burden for our teachers to do. I think you see immediately where it's a positive aspect. There is, but it comes down to, is it driving our academic achievement up? Is it helping our children be, again, academically successful? Are we bringing in partners with the parents? But also, where is the data going, and how is it utilized? Is it utilized in a way that's beneficial, but we don't know where it's going? So those are things that I'm looking at, because having spent a couple like locked in a room kind of days and really looking through that, there is validity to that concern. And I think what would be beneficial, because I can't regurgitate that information, and I'll work with the superintendent, but perhaps it's something that the board and even the members of the community need to at least hear a different component where there's factual, not snippets, and then we come together and figure out how we solve this. Because any kind of unknown or perception, even if it's not reality, if we don't really address it and then try to figure out how to solve it, we will continue to have a distrust, and that is, again, counterproductive to our mission. So I want to thank everyone here. I could go on for a couple of different things, and I will certainly continue to work with everyone here to as we move to improve this. But thank you. We're going to keep the positive energy going all throughout today. So thank you for setting the tone, and thank you everyone for your time. And we will move on to the next unless there are any other comments. All right, thank you. You are dismissed. No. Thank you. Moving on, I know we have Suncoast School for Innovative Studies. I have Miss Dr. Cantalupo, and is this supposed to say Millie? Miller Wheeler. I think Millie. It says Miller.
We don't have a clicker. Somebody stole mine. Yeah, if you want to do that, or I can, it's up to you. Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, good morning, all. Good morning, chair members. Thank you for having us today. As a little background, I'm Millie Wheeler. I'm supervisor of school choice and charter schools. Today, we have with us a team from Suncoast School for Innovative Studies. If you recall, they were with us earlier in the year in November to discuss their school grade and CSNI status. Today, they are here in particular to discuss their renewal application. So as a charter school, all of our charters, our 13 charters, have a charter contract with us. SSIS's charter is up for, it will end, the term ends in June of this year. So they are currently in the renewal cycle. As part of that cycle, the first step is they did submit to us a hefty renewal application. I think we dropped that off to you guys. Very thorough. They worked hard. Their team clearly worked hard on that. So our CRC team, our Charter Review Committee, is in process of reviewing that application and also working with them to request any additional information we may need. We're looking at all elements of a school, from finance to food and nutrition to transportation to academic achievement. It's really a comprehensive review. And as you all know, we have a wonderful team of district experts, some of whom are with us today, working with us on that team to review. We've also been out for a couple of site visits. Our curriculum team has done some classroom walkthroughs, and really just, like I said, working with the SSIS team to do a comprehensive review. So today they are here in particular to present their own case for renewal, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. The next step in the renewal process will be our team will finish our review. We will provide a written summary to you all to read, and then they will come up for vote in the February meeting. So at that, I will turn it over to the team with us today. We have Faith Jenkins, the principal. We have Anthony DiBenedetto, their accountant, and two members of their board, Mr. Barry Preston and Jacob Hart. And I was just also told that we don't have a clicker, so I will be clicking for you. If you need me to move on, just let me know. I will hand it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. Yes. Good morning, I think still.
Yes. Good morning. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. So thank you for the introduction, Millie. Again, I am Faith Jenkins, the principal at Suncoast School for Innovative Studies. I have had the pleasure of preparing this presentation for you today, really to give you a view of our school. There's a few different components throughout the presentation that I wanted to make sure that we were able to present to you. So there's information about the program as a whole, some of the connections we have in the community, some things that are offered as a program, and then of course our school improvement plan and some of the data that we've collected over this course of the school year. The school improvement plan itself, of course, has, you have access to that, has been in the charter renewal, but I wanted to give you an update on where we are in the process in some of those plans for school improvement. Okay. So we are Suncoast School for Innovative Studies. Our original charter was written on the idea of the multiple intelligence. The purpose of this is to make sure that we understand the way that our students learn and that they have an idea of their intelligences themselves. So we have built a culture around embracing our students' mistakes, making sure that they understand that they do not have to be smart in every single thing, that they have talents in many areas. These areas, as you can see, are displayed there, and I'll kind of present to you how we make sure that every student on our campus has the opportunity to display those talents and has the opportunity to learn in various different ways. So we absolutely focus on every student that comes through every family every day. So one of the connections that we definitely wanted to make was our student population. In the very beginning of the school year and when our new students come in, we conduct surveys with them and we do lessons with them to find out where their intelligences lie, where those talents are, how they prefer to receive information, not just their learning styles, but again, where they are, where they find themselves with talent and how they prefer to share and receive information. A large part of our student body is very musical, very kinesthetic, absolutely loves to have the opportunity to maneuver and use their body in different ways. We definitely see that right in a kindergarten classroom. You kind of use your music, you use your body to learn different things. So one of the partnerships that I'm very proud that we have is working with Sarasota Ballet and the Dance Next Generation program. We're the only charter school that's working with them right now. This program, they're piloting a 10-year program and it is for low-income students that really need an additional support. This program allows students in our school to participate in Sarasota Ballet, and they are provided with free transportation, the clothing that they need for the ballet. There's a mentoring program, tutoring, and they will also have the opportunity for a reduced college, an opportunity to attend college at a reduced price. So our students are able to participate in this program throughout. They start in 3rd grade, so they'll be actually working with us starting this year, and our students are able to participate in this throughout the rest of elementary school, middle, and high school, so that they will continue to have this opportunity. Another area that we have incorporated into our school day is that they're encouraged to participate in extracurricular activities. We wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity not only to increase engagement, parent engagement, make sure that our parents had a connection to our school, but also for our students to participate in something where they didn't have to go to another place, where they didn't have to be picked up, taken somewhere else, pay additional funds, pay additional money to have to buy uniforms. This is all incorporated into our program. So they are able to stay after school. They have a super snack in our after school program. They participate, they have time before they start their extracurriculars to kind of finish up their homework. They have that snack, and then they're able to participate in this. Our first program that we implemented in the fall was our flag football team. So we were able to have some games against another school in Manatee County because there aren't other schools that actually have flag football, elementary schools, flag football teams incorporated, but it was important for us to be able to make that connection with some other schools. And our next sports that we're going to be having is basketball. So again, it's an additional thing where our parents can have that as a part of our program while they're here in our school. Additionally, we have a drum line. So this is, again, an integrated program for our students. There is no additional cost for them, but as with our sports program, we do encourage our students to have acceptable academic performance and make sure that their attendance is on point. We have performed the drum line. They practice a couple times a week, and they have performed in various community events. They've been in the holiday parade. They've participated in a few other community events. And then most recently, we had attended the Florida Charter School, the annual Florida Charter School Conference, and we've been invited back. Our drum line specifically has been invited to perform and attend the Florida Charter School Conference next year. So it is a really exciting program for our students to be able to participate in something, and it's not just for specific. Anybody can try out for it. So any of our students are able to try out for this program. Another program that we have is a mentorship program. So it's very important that our students learn interpersonal skills, that they're able to communicate with each other effectively. They're able to the older students have the opportunity to mentor some of our younger students. So the Kindergarten Buddy program pairs our 4th and 5th grade students with our kindergarten students. And right now, this program is specifically focusing on enhancing the reading program and building a culture around our pride values. They are paired together and they engage in reading, writing, and comprehension exercises, but they also incorporate character building and interpersonal intelligence into their interactions. During these times, these students learn how to introduce themselves to others. They learn how to speak with each other. They learn how to listen. They learn how to sit next to each other in a close working environment. And then they also learn to receive feedback. They also learn to speak, at appropriate times. So it's a very important program for our older students and also for our younger students. It benefits them both. The volunteer program. So for a school like ours, we definitely need volunteers. It is very crucial for us not only to have the community support, but for our students to have, once again, that interpersonal relationship. The last couple of years of having less people on campus and having people have to stay away and don't come in has been a little bit tough. So we've really had to work on rebuilding our volunteer program, again, not only to bring attention to the needs of our students, but to make sure that we have that community connection. And one of the really great things is that our students just love it. Our students love to have someone. There's no specific, cognitive thing. It's not a test. They're not being tested on anything. It's just we get to sit, enjoy some time with someone, read a book of our choosing or read a book of their choosing, and they get to spend a little bit of time learning about them. But they also have something to look forward to that helps them in a bunch of different areas. So we have a few volunteers who have graciously come in, and they're starting to work with our students in reading, math. We have some interest in gardening, technology. So really, for us, having some additional community members to share some of the love of these different areas with our students has been very important to our program. One of the things that is really great about, if you have not been on our campus, I know that, elementary school, you probably have an idea of what they look like, but I love the fact that we have a lot of comfortable spaces for our students. If we have students that require flexible seating, preferential seating, they need movement breaks or things like that, it is easily accommodated. We're able to make sure that our students have the ability to get their sensory input if they need it, but then it's still a classroom. So there's traditional seating available, of course. During testing, they absolutely take advantage of that, so they're prepared for that testing environment. But when it's not necessary, when those students are just reading or when they're enjoying, again, some interpersonal time, we want to make sure that they're comfortable because, again, if they are comfortable, then they're able to absorb whatever the information is, and they're also much more capable and much more equipped to deal with any kind of conflicts that come their way or anything that might be frustrating. So we have many different available ways of seating, and then we also have a couple of outdoor classrooms that our students can utilize because we live in Florida. So, I mean, it's really great to be able to get outside, get some fresh air, and enjoy a little bit of a different space so that our students have the opportunity to explore some learning in a different environment. So our school has pride values. Every morning we have a pride assembly. Our values that we infuse into the fabric of a student's day are proficiency, respect, integrity, determination, and excellence. And we share with our students that their Panther Pride is their badge of honor. This is the basis of our positive behavior and intervention support. Just one piece of this is that our students and teachers are able to write pride referrals for their students, and they're positive referrals for their students. And the students also have taken up writing them for each other. So it's been really great to hear some of the ways that they're catching each other, showing these pride values. And then during our morning assembly, we actually celebrate those students, and they earn rewards just for modeling those values. Throughout the year, we like to encourage our students, again, to show these values because we believe that we can create, a culture where we have positive citizenship, and it's not just specifically focused on what you do as an academic scholar, but just really who you are as a person and how you contribute to the community. One of the ways that our pride values are, one of the ways that students are rewarded, just one, is they're able to receive tokens for our book vending machine. So I took some surveys last year and this year on what the students were really enjoying reading, what kinds of things they really wanted to dive into. So what we did was so our book vending machine is filled with books typically that students enjoy reading. We do participate in the accelerated reader program, so many of our students get very, very competitive and they want to be the one with the most points or reading the coolest books. But it's been really great to see them earning these Inchi coins, they're called, to use in our book vending machine, because then they're able to read these books, take those tests, get those AR points, and then I've noticed that they've started getting books for the classroom to share with other students, or I'll notice that they'll trade the books, and sometimes they take them because they want to read them with their kinder buddy. So it's not just, I've really enjoyed seeing the way that the book vending machine has kind of grown as a part of the culture on campus. They're no longer just using it like for themselves. They're using it, again, it's really wonderful to see them feel like it's a part of a positive part of the culture on campus. So really it's like books are the reward. So it's been really great to see how our students are able to take their pride values and then turn it into something that can also help them interpersonally, but also academically. So another part of our positive behavior and intervention support is we have what we call a sunshine room. This room is a sensory kind of haven for our students in need. So in this room, this is just a few of the things that we have. We have a rock climbing wall, there's a tent, a trampoline, heavy workstation, crash pad, a couple different swings, but right now displayed is the cocoon swing. And there's a few other things. There's some soft seating. There's typically soft lighting. There's a fish tank, so we have some students that help keep those fish alive. The students are able to schedule time in that room, so there are some students who this is a proactive approach. We have some students who it may be a part of their plan, but it also is, we notice if there's a student who struggles with transition or after a disorganizing activity such as PE or lunch or something like that, they can have some time to get regulated and then re-enter the learning environment. Students who may require discipline, they have time, they do behavior reflection sheets, and then at that time they're connected with the counselor, an administrator, the teacher if it's something where we need to have some follow-up. possibly other students if we need to do some restorative talks. And then they're able to have a calm environment. Again, we know that embarrassment can sometimes lead to heightened feelings. So we want to give them a calm environment where they're able to work through the problems without any outside influence. So we also have student ambassadors. Again, trying to create a situation where our students are able to be positive parts of not just our community, but the community at large. So donors, supporters, any visitors are greeted by student ambassadors. Each classroom has ambassadors, and it rotates. The teachers and the students choose, and some of the classrooms vote them in. Sometimes the teachers will choose. Sometimes the students will just hop up and they'll decide that they're going to be. But it is something where we've asked our ambassadors to really speak to, whatever is happening in the classroom, because we want the community to feel welcome, but we also want to give our students the opportunity to communicate, to practice that skill, especially those soft skills. And we want them to have the opportunity to work on their speaking, listening, publishing. So many of them will prepare speeches. They'll write essays depending on the things that are happening. If we know that someone is coming, and especially if they're a donor for us or a very avid supporter, they've created things for them, so they work on their publishing and technology in that way. So we'd like for them to have pride in their school, and this is another way that they're able to display that for anyone that comes. A large part of our ambassador program is our Student Government Association. So we have what's called SGA. These friends are campaigned, so they actually did put on a full campaign. They had posters, they had speeches, we had a full vote. They had an inauguration. It was really a sight to see, especially the things that they did to coerce those kids to voting for them. But the main part of this was, again, to really encourage our students to have a voice and to have feel like they belong to a part of our school and a part of our community. So our SGA has attended events with us. They are not here today, actually, because they're touring a couple of middle schools for next year. But our SGA will attend events with us. They help us to, speak to certain things, but they also are a part of the school culture. So a few of them will survey other kids to see kind of how things are going. Do they need to create projects? Do they need to, come to administration about something that they want to change? So they are a voice for the other students. And again, they were voted in by their students. So there's some of that ownership there for them as a part of our school community, but of the larger community. Okay, so this part of our presentation, moving a little bit more into our school, our programs, our school and our programs. Just as an overview, right now we are going to be moving to, I'm going to speak about our school improvement plan and some of the changes that we've made since I was last here in November, but also just as a whole what we're working on this school year. So our school improvement areas of focus, we definitely had some, we wanted to focus on our ESSA subgroups, our instructional practice. I sectioned out transformational leadership because though it is one area, it's two parts that we really wanted to make sure we focus on. The leadership portion of this, but in how we're conducting our walkthroughs and how many we are conducting, and also our school culture and parent and family engagement, which I spoke largely to just a moment ago. So one of the first things that we were able to implement was our Catapult instructional coaching. Catapult Learning is a company that we were able to pay with our UNISIG funds. So we were able to acquire these funds, and we will have them also for next school year. They'll be coming in to help us with our school improvement plan. This specific area is for instructional coaching. They engaged our students with professional development around instructional practices directly related to student achievement. The feedback from our teachers was that they absolutely loved it. So this was a time where they were not expected to be with students. It was specifically around how can we work through lesson planning, instructional practices, really focusing on standards-based instruction. So we will continue with this throughout the school year. And then we also have this particular grant. It is guaranteed to us next year as well. So with the feedback from the teachers, this may be something that we'll continue working with them next year as well. But these instructional coaching and workshops will continue throughout the rest of the school year. So as we work through the rest of this presentation, I want you to please keep in mind that our students typically tend to make growth toward proficiency. We have, in the last few years, we've taken a look at where our students start and where they finish, and there is typically a very large learning loss that happens over the summer. They may finish in one area, our students come back considerably below grade level, and then we typically do work throughout the year to get them up to proficiency. So most of our work is done in that lower to middle range before they're able to reach proficiency. In order to assess where that growth and proficiency happens, we do participate in the same assessments that the school district schools participate in. So kindergarten through second grade students, they participate in STAR, early reading, early literacy, and math, and it's all done online. And so far this year, we've had 2 assessment periods, and those students will have another one in May. For science, it's grades 3 through 5. They do benchmarks. We've had 2 of those this year, and it's done online. And for FAST, that's grades 3 through 5, reading and math, those are done online, and we've had 2 assessment periods, and you may hear me reference them as PM1 and PM2. We have, this is worth noting because we have, there's some slides or areas where you may pull up our data and you may notice that there's 2 different types of classrooms. We have a TAG class, which is called a talented and gifted class, for students who exhibit high performance capability, typically intellectual, creative, artistic, and they possess a capacity for leadership or excel in a specific academic field. And then we have a general classroom where students and families really desire a more traditional approach. This classroom typically has the most supports. So the remediation, the aid supports, and the scaffolding supports are there, but both models provide a rounded educational experience. We have one student who has gone through the referral process for gifted, and then we have 4 who has gone through the screening process and is moving to gifted, and then we have 4 who are going through a referral process. So we do see definitely a need for this, and we do have parents that ask about, is there any kind of acceleration? So you'll notice some of the data that TAG is referred to, and that's the reason why. For the goals for academic improvement, we have 3 main kind of partners that we're working with, that we identified early on and that we have been working very, very hard and very, very diligently with. The Bureau of School Improvement has directly worked with us this year. The goal is, and what their goal to work with us is instructional walkthroughs, instructional reviews, and then to improve the school-wide instructional framework. They were supposed to have 2 visits with us, so we were supposed to have their direct connection with us start earlier in the school year, but Florida weather said no thank you. So both of those were scheduled and then rescheduled because one of a tropical storm and then another one because of a hurricane. So unfortunately, we have not had the direct connection with BSI to come on our campus. So instead, I reached out and asked if I would be able to visit with them as they conducted other mid-year reviews and instructional reviews. So I have been able to visit other schools to see the exact process, to be able to see exactly what the process looks like, because I've not experienced it myself. We've not been a CSNI school before. So I was able to go with them. I've participated in virtual meetings with them. I have seen the process, and I know that you all, are aware of that because of some of the schools in the district that have gone through it. So I have been there, and actually on Thursday, I'm visiting 2 more schools with the BSI team. So I'm very, very committed to that process with BSI, and they are scheduled to come to us in February for our mid-year review. Next week, we have our pre-mid-year review meeting where they'll be going over some of the things. So it's a really great partnership that we have with them, and I'm glad to be able to work with BSI directly because, again, that's where we get our feedback from for our school grades. So working with them helps us to know exactly what we need to do. Catapult Learning. As I spoke before, because of our Unified School Improvement Grant, we were able to utilize $65,000 specifically for school improvement. So this company is helping us with many of our areas of school improvement. They are helping us with the instructional coaching. So we actually have an instructional coach, the same one who has come to do our workshops. She works one-on-one with our teachers. Not only doing observations, but she also will be working with them to help with their planning, working with them in PLCs to improve their instructional practices. Catapult will also be coming in to do high-dose tutoring. One of the things that has been kind of tough for starting this particular area of improvement is that they have a teacher shortage too. So they typically hire their teachers and then they assign them to us, and they have had a great bit of difficulty getting that one person who would be able to stay with us, but they have. And so that person should be starting with us. They've already been hired, and they should be starting with us, if not this week, then next week. And the purpose for that is so that we can have high-dose tutoring for 30 of our students, and those students are the ones in multiple subgroups. It's an area that we really wanted to make sure that we paid attention to, because we do have students who are in many of those subgroups, and we wanted to make sure that we gave them the best shot at higher academic achievement. And then Catapult will also be helping us with our grade level instructional framework, making sure that our teachers know what it should look like during each block of time, but also making sure that they are aware how to help our students in the classroom, what the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 framework needs to look like, and how we make sure that we adhere to standards-based instruction. And then, of course, we've been working with Sarasota County Schools. So the curriculum instructional support specialists did come through and give us some feedback on that. And then we do use the professional development system for making sure that our teachers are up to date on professional development. So this next piece I'm going to get into is very data heavy. So if you have any, I know that you'll be taking notes. I wanted to share with you our data because it is, again, the part of our school improvement plan that we had to pay very close attention to. We had to spend a lot of time reflecting on where we needed to pay the most attention, what is it that our students need, but also why did we have areas where our students were in need. One of the areas that we know that our students, and it's historically, mathematics is an area for us, but we have had specific challenges this year. One of them is low overall student performance related to learning gaps and the student views around mathematics and their experiences with mathematics, like even before this school year. That is just a historical thing. That is something that when we do our surveys with our students at the beginning of the year or when they're first coming into us, mathematics is consistently one of the areas where our students do not feel comfortable. They do not feel like they have it. Like, they don't feel like it's an area where I got it, I feel confident. So we definitely have to work on the motivational piece of that. This year specifically with a new math curriculum, and then when we also have instructors where we're trying to change the instructional framework, there's a little bit of instructional confidence that's affected there as well. So this year we have had, with the new curriculum coming in, but then there were also curriculum delays, our instructional confidence has wavered a bit. So we've been working very, very hard to make sure when we get that curriculum in, making sure they have a little bit more knowledge about how to use it comfortably and also transfer some of that comfort and confidence over to the students who definitely need it. And then, of course, like I mentioned, the shifts in instructional focus, it has, it creates a little bit of confidence wavering. So that's our main area for our mathematics for improvement. And our first area, we opted in to iReady. So when I named the 3 mandatory assessments, iReady was not one of them. We opted into it so that we would have additional data. Again, a part of our reflection is we wanted to make sure that we had all of the possible information that we could have. When we opted into this information, we knew, first of all, that we would only have one assessment period, so that we've only had one assessment period. This was in the end of October into November. And then for this, it doesn't directly correlate to our state assessments, but it gives us additional information. There are additional ways for us to break down this data and pay attention to what our kids need. When we're looking at color here, our students, again, in October, are considered reaching the benchmark in green. The students who are 1 year below are in yellow, and the students who are 2 or more years below are in red. Right now, what we're seeing is that we have in October, we had a considerable amount of students who needed additional support so that they could move up to the benchmark. So what we did with this data is we're able to break that down, take a look at where some of those gaps are, and our expectation is that those students who are in yellow will then move toward proficiency into the green area. It's actually more promising for us to see more yellow, obviously, than it is for red, but we do know that with this being in October toward the beginning of the year, we have some work to do, but we also know that with all of the things that we're putting in place, we have some promising plans for our students to make those gains in mathematics. This is the information from our state testing. So on the very bottom was our PM1, our first assessment, and the second one up top is our second assessment. We had a reduction in the number of students below the benchmark, and then we had an increase of number of students above meeting or above the benchmark. So again, mathematics is an area where we absolutely had to shore up our instructional practices, spend a lot of time taking a look at those foundational skills. That is one of the main focuses of those students who are pulled for Tier 3 instruction, and one of the main focuses of our one-on-one instructional coaching. Broken down by grade level in 3rd, 4th, and 5th. What we want to see is negative numbers in the red areas, because that means that we're reducing the number of students who are below level, and we want to see more positive numbers in the yellow and green areas. So in 3rd grade, we've had a reduction in below level students and an increase in students who are moving toward proficiency. This is from the second testing. excuse me, in the black area where you see SS, that's the scale score. What we also want to see there is that from PM1 to PM2, that there is an increase in the overall and or average scale score. So we've definitely, even without yet having implemented all of the work that we're going to be putting into with Catapult and instructional coaching, again, these tests were taken the first one was taken at the beginning of the year, and then they finished their last ones in November and December. So those students were able to show a little bit of gain, but this definitely isn't a reflection yet of the work that we need to be doing with BSI, Catapult, and the instructional coaching. But again, we want to, I'll be showing the same thing in reading for 3, 4, and 5, and we want to see negative numbers in the red, meaning we're losing those below level students and that they're moving into the yellow and green areas. All right, so shifting to our reading. Overall as a school, we did the same thing here. We wanted to have as much information as possible for our school for reading. So we opted into iReady, and we definitely wanted to make sure we paid attention to where our students needed to be. And again, we had only one testing of this. They will test again in February. So we will be able to see some growth. And my hope is that, again, the students in yellow will be able to move into the green area. Students in the red area will move into the yellow area. Our reading progress for the state testing that our students took. So from PM1, this is again grades 3, 4, and 5 all together. From the beginning of the school year, and then when they took the test again, we did have a reduction in students who were at the below level area, and an increase in students who were meeting or meeting or past the proficiency area. We will continue again to work through this. Our goal for our 3, 4, and 5, our school improvement goal, is to have 43% proficiency by the end of the school year, FSA equivalency by the end of the school year. So taking a look at them broken down by 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Again, in the black area where we see SS, we want to see some increase in the scale scores, and then negative numbers in the black area, and then positive numbers in the red and the green areas. We had a reduction in 3rd and 4th grade. The number of students in 5th grade stayed the same, and then two of our students went from level 4 to level 3, but stayed in the proficiency range.
And I'm gonna pause you really quickly, only
Yes.
from because these are really important. I know we had to read ahead, and I hope everyone read this, because when we look at the time, and we have, I want to make sure we get to questions for the board members as well, especially. And Millie, I just want to, sorry, Ms. Wheeler, you said February is when this comes back in front of the board for final decision on renewal. Okay, because I have a sense and thank you, by the way, because I love the presentation. I want to make sure that we allow for questions so that we get all of those answered prior to that decision. So I don't know if I think we're close to wrapping up, or?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Go ahead.
Thank you. All right, so I will go through and just make points on progress. So again, now we have testing from pre-K all the way through. So just some points. Kindergarten was able to make some pretty good scale score gains on their testing. They tested in STAR. So kindergarten was able to make 34 points gain between their first and second assessment. In math and in reading, they were able to make 114 point scale score gains. I'll just kind of, yeah. So for our first grade students, again, we were able to make some scale score gains there. And then we had some students that were able to go from early literacy to reading, which is different iterations of the test. We want them to move into reading every time they take this test. So we want them to be moving out of those areas. In our second grade, and since you have this information in front of you, I'll just kind of hit on the points, but we were in both reading and math able to make over 30 point average scale score gain in both of those assessments. And then again, we already have a few students in iReady who were able to make the already at or above grade level expectations. For third grade, because this is our area specifically for school improvement, I wanted to make sure that we at least took a look at our proficiency and where we were then and where we're hoping to be. So again, we know that math is our area of critical need. Our school for third grade was at 3% proficiency. Historically, by the end of the year for FSA, we were at 29% and 30%. Our goal, our school improvement goal was a 3 through 5 average. So we wanted to make sure that we had the average there. For reading for third grade, they were at 19% proficiency on this new state test. Historically, for FSA, we were at 32 and 33%, and our goal is grades 3 through 5, 43%. For fourth grade, as a school, we were at 23% at the benchmark. It was a 17% gain from the first assessment. Historically, in math, our fourth graders on FSA were at 13% proficiency and 42% proficiency. And right, again, in November, they were at 23%. Our goal for 3 through 5, again, is 40%, and that is in math. So for reading, 50% of our fourth grade students are at or above the benchmark, which was a 22% gain from the first assessment. Historically, for FSA, they were at 21 and 37%. Our goal is average, 43%. So right now, they are pretty well, our fourth grade is pretty well on track for reading. For fifth grade, the math, 10%, which was a gain for us. Historically, again, fifth grade was not a strong area for us in math. Historically, 7% and 18% for 21 and 22 respectively. Again, our goal across is to have 40% in grades 3 through 5 in math. For reading, our school has, fifth grade, our school has 30%. Historically, for FSA, in 21 and 22, they were at 15 and 32%. So right now, our fifth grade are on a pretty good track to do better than they had historically on FSA. So for science, so this is the last data piece. For science, just take it, and again, this is just pulling raw data from, this is just benchmark, so they take a look at specific markers. They were at 44% mastery in grade 3, 46% mastery in grade 4, and 45% mastery in grade 5. Which is slightly better than they were doing in the previous year for each of those grades, except for fifth grade. We are continuing to work there, but our goal for fifth grade is to be at 24%, and they are currently in both APs doing better than they were last year for science. So our next steps, we know math is a critical, is an area that we definitely need to show some improvement. So that is, again, why we've implemented Catapult coming in, working with BSI, making sure that we have some strong instructional practices in place. We'll be shifting to a whole school intervention model. So right now, our students, our classrooms have their full instructional time, but then there's also an additional time during the day for enrichment where they receive their Tier 3 instruction. We'll be working on creating a whole school intervention model, whereas students won't just be paired with their same age peers, but they'll be able to take a look at what they need instructionally. So if the student needs to work on closing a gap in a lower standard, they have time to do that outside of their instructional time to be able to close some of those gaps. And then the teachers are able to really work on the grade level standards-based instruction during their instructional time. Catapult has begun the teacher coaching. We'll continue with the pullouts, and then we will also continue to partner with BSI for those visits. And then thankfully, we will absolutely continue to utilize the funds for UNISIG throughout this school year and also next school year to make sure that we're able to continue with the plans that we've put in place here. So I thank you. I know it was very lengthy. It's tough to put so much information into just a few minutes, but I appreciate the time to be able to speak to you about our program and share where we are now.
No, and I appreciate it. I'm sorry, I hate to cut off because I know you guys have done a tremendous amount of work, and I know you coming in trying to really put the focus on, and the data really matters. I think a lot of the board members up here are very focused on the data, so that I don't want to gloss over that. But I didn't want to minimize the amount of questions or time given to that, given that there is a relatively short turnaround time for what is a very large decision, in my opinion, for this board, given the length of time of which you guys have been in this district, also some of the struggles that we've had, and then making that decision, what is in the best interest and what's the viable solution moving forward. I have my thoughts, I have my questions, but I want to defer to any board members if they have any. Otherwise, any questions, any comments? Mrs. Marinelli?
I saw where you put a number of students that were in exceptional student education, but how many 504 students do you have?
Oh, Mike.
I can get that number for you. I think we have about 10 students.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So for me, I really struggled with this whole situation because I think to myself that I think it's wonderful. I'm a big supporter of choice. I want to make sure that parents can decide and be in that driver's seat. And clearly, if that enrollment is staying, I think one of the questions I'd asked before was on the retention. I know we're looking at the aggregate amount of students, but how long are they there? Now, they're outside of influences if they have to move or what have you, but that go through, that remain with you. I think that is a strong component to say that parents understand, they like it, and they say, and I don't want to take that choice away from them. However, I think there's a really important component we are tasked with, especially when it comes to K through 5, the early education, that sets the trajectory. Many of those students go to our middle schools, and so where are they? What path are they on? How much remediation do we have to do? Because you went through those numbers, and there are children certainly in our district managed schools that are in those lower levels as well. So it's always how do we get them up? How can we do that? And so the question for me comes, do you have all the resources that you need to have to really lift those children, those students up for success early on? And this has been, and I know there's been new leadership, and again, thank you, because I think you have really honed in and narrowed in. And so that's where I will tell you, I'm very much on, I don't know what the right direction is. I look forward to the CRC. They do amazing work, thank you, to see what that, in a much more comprehensive, one overview, I guess I should say. The one thing, and just for anyone, because we have newer board members up here, just for historical notion is that my biggest component when we were looking at before whether or not it was even going to be able to stay and open based on the academic grade was that we plan accordingly to help those families and students transition and help our district be prepared for that. I think to me, that I don't care what school it is, that's our biggest importance, making sure that they're set up for what that transition looks like if in the event, because I've never been in a situation where either a non-renewal or closing a school or even redistricting, all of which are very disruptive to the student, to the learning environment, and to the families. And so all of those I take very, very seriously. But and while I think we've seen progress in the academic increases that you've overviewed here, there's still a lot of concern about this children being set on a path to be successful. And because it's early education, I think that's where I'm struggling. And so when you look at what, and there's a lot in here, and again, I know that the CRC is going to provide the board more information. I recall the last meeting we had was in a public format like this was that in between of if we see that we're not making the progress that we want to do, we realize our goal, all of ours collectively, is truly about the children's academic success. Where do you feel that you are seeing? I mean, I know you just overviewed, but there was almost a tipping point that was discussed last meeting, where the school would be in order to really realize of saying, we know that we're not really achieving those goals for those students, because that's what we're here for, and then working collaboratively with the district as far as what that next path is. Where do you see yourselves, and anyone can answer this question, is there a specific metric or benchmark or proficiency level that you are looking at to see if this is truly the set situation for those students to be successful?
So thank you for asking that. My main area that I look at is, again, when we look at our students and we look at proficiency, our students don't come in proficient, and most of them nowhere near proficient. So sometimes it is very difficult for us to measure the success of our students by their proficiency, but I absolutely have to take a look at their growth. So quite often when I'm working with their students, when we're pulling data, when we're looking at where they are, I do want to see them moving through levels. And if we have students who are not moving through levels, then that's where we kind of would have a concern. But the positive thing is we have a considerable amount of students who are able to move through those levels toward proficiency. And again, in our 4th and 5th grade, we have students who we have been able to see have been able to move through those levels and are now hitting those proficiency markers. That to me is where I really want to make sure we focus a lot of our attention. So right now with our kindergarten and 1st grade classes where I was showing you those scale score gains, that to me, we now have in the last few months and really in the last couple of years tried to put sustainable systems in place that we don't need all of the additional support and all of the extra things that are coming in. We want to make sure that those lower grades have that, so as they move through our program, there's less need for bringing up students far, 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 far below, even when they have those gaps during the summer or that regression during the summer. But we have the ability to continue moving them through their levels. So for us, it's tough to say, to answer that specifically on proficiency, but what we're always looking for is, do we have students moving through levels? And I can tell you we absolutely do have students that are moving through levels toward proficiency.
No, a fair point on the gains, and thank you for that clarification. Mr. Edwards?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Duggan, my question is, if we deny the approval or the renewal, is there a legal track that SSIS has to appeal and we'd have to defend?
So if you either non-renew or terminate, well, first of all, either way, the default is renewal. If you want to renew or non-renew or terminate, you need to give 90 days notice prior to the end of the school year. So that's working back from around the beginning of June. I don't know what the exact last day of school is, but it would be around March 1st. We would have to give notice of our intention of what our decision would be. We're required to give notice with reasonable detail and outline very specific statutory criteria for that decision. The school would be entitled to appeal. We would have to notice them of their right to appeal, and it would go to what's called a Division of Administrative Hearings, or DOA judge, which is an administrative law judge, for essentially a trial on the merits of our decision. And if that decision obviously would have some weight, and the charter school, if they lost, or I guess us too, if we lost, would be able to appeal to court. And per statute, there are prevailing attorney's fees awarded to the prevailing party in that dispute. So the losing party would likely pay the other party's attorney's fees, and that would be the process. So that would, there's timeframes associated with that as well. So that would take a couple months if we were to non-renew or terminate. That would be the course of action.
Thank you. I spoke to one of the chancellors at the DOE about, I would say, a little over a year ago, specifically about your organization, because I was concerned, as you know, with your performance well before you were here last November. So what I am looking at is The Department of Education and Tallahassee, in every way, shape, or form, sends, at least to me, a message that school choice is the trump card, always wins. So they've taken away even the school board's responsibility to approve or deny a charter school moving forward. One of the most profound things that I heard in your presentation in November is that your parents choose you. You said that loud and clear. I'm not sure why, because the data doesn't substantiate that for me. And as Mrs. Ziegler pointed out, we inherit those kids in middle school, and that affects our data, and that affects our teachers and all of the work that has to go into those. But at the same time, the last two renewals that were denied within the state were challenged by the state. So I'll give you just some feedback from my point of view. I think you're a little top-heavy with Dr. Evans and Ms. Jenkins. Community involvement doesn't strike me for 140 students as a full-time job. So I think you're top-heavy in your expenses. Your class size scares me specifically. And I do, the fact that BSI is just now getting involved doesn't indicate to me you have or you've had a sense of urgency. And for those 140 kids, I had a sense of urgency when I got here, which is why I started the conversation 2 years ago. So I'm telling you, from my point of view, I'm not looking to take on a legal challenge. It's not going to be worth it. But if those parents still want to choose you, so be it.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. I mean, well, I may say it differently, but but I do concur with a lot of the statements that you made, and I think that's the challenge. Is there's a value in this public conversation because, and I think of other charter discussions we've had, and that the value of hearing from our staff, giving the public an opportunity to be aware of the pros, cons, what have you, to make informed decisions. That's how I see it. There is a reality to this has been going on for some time, and that's why I have, and I know our former superintendent and Mr. Renoff has been involved as well from the academic standpoint. I had implored the board and Dr. Evans to really look at this as a partnership for the students, because the writing's very much on the wall when it comes to academics. It's not up to the level that we all know that every child should be able to succeed, and we all know that there's a myriad of subset of situations, but inside that schoolhouse we have to strive for that. And so, and especially because, as I mentioned, it's the early education, K through 5 is pre-K through 5, so key to that trajectory. And then we are certainly taking them on, and as a partner in the community, it doesn't matter if it's district manager or what, but we are seeing that this is not really on the trajectory of success. However, as Mr. Edwards mentioned, that I don't ideally look for a legal challenge, but I also believe it's our responsibility to publicly discuss this, to make sure that our community members, those parents, make informed decisions, and also to prepare our staff, our school district, and what have you, to find the best solution, whether it be non-renewal, so that we prepare in advance, so it's not a scramble, because that is, I don't know, however you look at it, it's a disruption, and that is not, disruptions are not good for academically, but if we're prepared, if we collaborate and we partner with the writing on the wall from the academics being the focus, that has been my hope since day one. So I know there's some additional comments. Mrs. Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For me, it boils down to the students. And as a school board member, I do believe in choice, always have. But I believe those choices that I'm putting my name behind have to support every single student. And it is clear that your school has students that need intensive support and have needed that for quite a while. I'm obligated to know and see that intensive support is there and that it's moving every individual student, or for me, I'm not doing my job. And it doesn't, regardless of legals, regardless of state, regardless of everything, I know in my heart of hearts that if you make decisions based on what's best for every individual student, you are making the best decision. And I'm not seeing the kind of intensive support that I want to see and that I feel students would get in our school. And the longer that this goes on, the more that I'm ignoring the fact that I'm saying, yes, send them to middle school because catching up is darn near impossible. I think that I'm not seeing any assurances of students at your school, and this isn't personal whatsoever. I think that you've jumped in and are doing a wonderful job, and you're very much passionate about being in this position, but we're talking about several years. And I'm going to be very upfront with you. My decision is going to be based on several years of students and their lives, and my non-negotiable goal of them being ready to graduate, ready for a career or for college.
Thank you. Mr. Enos.
And ultimately, I think as long as you look at what is the best interest for the student, you can ever, I know we have to be good financial stewards, but I also look at it's that, when you make decisions ultimately for what our responsibility is for the students, whether or not the state wants to go ahead and do whatever they want, is that you can't base the decisions on whether or not, we'll be sued. Or whether or not there'll be any challenges. But based on this, and also from the report from staff, one of the things that I would request when we do these is to have something in there regarding their compliance with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, in regarding to guardians on campus, safe corners, all the rest of the stuff that needs to be in there, because ultimately the district is responsible. I didn't see it in the report. Thank you for that clarification, but also I look at that piece is that, we have to do what's right for the kids, and that's the bottom line. If you look at the data, and I remember, I think Mr. Evans was the principal there for a while. Plenty of contact with him, did some training for the staff there. At the end of the day, it always comes back to that, and I can tell you, for me, when I look at it, it'll never be whether or not, if we do what's right for the kids, whether or not there's any legal challenge to that. If you do what's right, it's right. And I could just tell you, based on the data and the stuff, that it looks like it's they're not getting the education that they should deserve.
Thank you. Mrs. Marinelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I have a unique perspective also, because back in the day, I had charter schools, and when SSIS was applying, I worked with you. So we're looking 20 years. And we've kind of had the same data for 20 years. And at some point, we really have to address that. And we've had many students go through. So for me, when I look at historically 20 years and not a lot of improvement, not that your heart and soul isn't put in it, I see that. But for me, not seeing improvement for that many years, I'm going to have to lean towards doing what's best for the students. And that's going to be talking with the community and fellow board members, but looking at bringing the students back. So, thank you.
Ms. Wheeler, so I just need to make sure for process purposes. When will we expect to get the CRC's overview? And then we have 2 meetings in February. If you can just walk us through, just so we're prepared, and then if there are any follow-up questions with members of the board or with staff. Where's the mic? I don't know what's going on.
There it goes. The plan is to have the final review to prior to agenda review, which I believe is on February 9th. And we wanted to have this meeting prior to the ultimate review in case you had any additional questions. It would give us time to research them and get those and include them in the final review. And then the vote will be on the 21st in lining us up with the timeline that the attorney spoke of.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, sorry.
Hi, I'm Barry Preston. I'm president of the board. Could I have a moment to make a statement?
Sure.
First, I'd like to address Mr. Edwards. He's been a terrific, let me say, critic and super helpful to us. He's been to the school twice, and just want to say really appreciate your thoughts, Tom, and what you shared with us. I wanted to respond to your question about top heaviness, and particularly Dr. Evans. We have a sort of an unusual structure for a school. We have a great principal, Ms. Jenkins, and we now have a director of advancement and development. That's Dr. Evans. She's got, first let me just say one of her responsibilities is fundraising, and she has raised her own salary and plus about $20,000 extra for our aftercare program, and the objective is to raise her salary again this year for critical needs that the school has that are above and beyond the support that the district provides. But her principal responsibilities are, one, direct intervention with at-need students. She's got 4 groups that she works with to address the critical problems that have been identified and that the board has been concerned about. She is responsible for enrollment and is working hard on community outreach and to publicize the particular strengths of this school and its mission to the communities out there that actually are the source of the students who choose to come here. And then she's also responsible for community engagement, so a lot of the partnerships that Mrs. Jenkins talked to you about are things that Sharika has reached out to and involved the community with. So she reports directly to the board on that, and so I would say that that's a key role for us in the school, but it also supports itself. So the other thing I'd like to say that our board is completely committed to the mission of the school and to the students that its particular population of students that it serves with respect to its charter, and also to support Principal Jenkins. We provide financial support for both operations and to supplement district funds for key initiatives at the school, many of the things that Mrs. Jenkins talked about, and also to support for outreach and enrollment. So we've been involved in bringing other community partners into the school for enrichment for the students. So just wanted the school board to know that this board is very committed to the objectives that Mrs. Jenkins talked about and that I know you all are concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you for the time, and truly, again, the presentation, the passion. I think that this is not an easy decision upon us, and I think, as was stated before, we just have to take every other element and laser focus on how we see and set our students up for the success, and doing it in a way that we can help inform families as best as possible about the best decision for them as well. Unless there are any additional questions or comments, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a couple comments, if that's okay.
Yeah,
I'm Vice Chair. My name's Jacob Hart. I'm a product of Sarasota County Schools. I've got 2 children enrolled in Sarasota County Schools. And so I was asked to join the board about a year ago by someone who I really respected, who was on the board and had been for a long time. They've had some stuff come up that has forced a transition, which we all go through. But I just thought it'd be important just to give my perspective on why I'm still here and why I joined in. This school's been around in Sarasota for a very long time, as you addressed. And I'm a statistics guy. It's just what my business is. But looking at all those grades over the long term, understanding, not directly where our children come from, but from the stories of the teachers and the staff, the kids come in behind, and we get them to a place where over time, and I think on average that it's been average. They come in below average, and in general, they've left average. The population of our school was probably one of the most severely hit from this, the pandemic we've all gone through. I think we're on the other side of that. But there's still a scar. It's shown in our grades. those people who are there are going to have this scar forever. This is one of the things my wife was most concerned about for our children, was the scar of the lack of social interaction they'll get where they're going through these early stages. I can't imagine that our school's the only one with children that had a scar. I think it gets shown more in our size because we have a smaller population. And when we received the letter, it was about the same time I joined the board, and I remember one of our board meetings, we had a heart-to-heart with everybody. It just, do we really think our kids are better off at our school? And the overall sentiment was, yeah, they do. The staff, this was the staff decision. They really think the kids are better off here. And I just hope that when we were looking at the grades, it's not just recent, because over time, I've only been here a short time, but it's very powerful what these people do. And, you know, again, being a product of Sarasota County Schools, I don't remember all my teachers, but I remember a few that took the time to get to know me. And I just wanted to mention that, so thank you.
No, thank you very much. And you hit on a number of points where, again, that I look at it as that's the conversations that have been ongoing of really almost pleading on that partnership of having a truly reflected approach to that. Is this really in the best interest of our students, all of our students, to be successful? Do you have the resources? And so I appreciate that feedback a lot. So if there are no other additional questions, we will wait to get all of that information. But Mr. Renoff, is there anything? Okay. There's no, okay, just want to make sure. And then we thank you, and then Ms. Wheeler will get all the board members the next steps, and we will move forward accordingly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you again. Members, I'm going to make quite a little bit of an adjustment because the afternoon we have two time specific based on people who are joining us, and I do not want to expedite any conversations that we have all of which are important. And if I look at number one, which again, it really needed to afford the time with you, that many people here. I don't particularly like when we do a presentation and then don't get the opportunity to ask questions and we seize the moment. So I'm going to move the interim superintendent search discussion after lunch. We will do budget, we'll do calendar feedback, we will break at 12 and go get back at 1. Then we will cover Neola, legislative platform very, very briefly. And then we will move the interim superintendent search discussion, which will put us at about 2:30-ish, and so, or 3, and then move forward accordingly, okay? And so with that, we are going to go to the budget. Mrs. Penner.
Good morning, still morning. I will try to be quick because we are still very preliminary in our budgeting process. As you know, the budget has trajectory. We start with certain pieces and then we build on that. And we are finished or close to being finished with the major building block of the budget, which is the FTE forecast. So you should have a packet of about 16 pages with you, which has some data that I'm going to go over today, some that I'm just going to really give a high-level overview so that we can discuss it as we move forward. But our staff in the budget department has met with each school, and we've also been joined by our planning department, which crazy helpful in coming up with our budgeted enrollment, our student enrollment forecasts. So with that, what you have before you is the enrollment and then the FTE forecast that the district will be putting forward. The first page you have is a graphical representation just to sort of help you get a visual of where we have been over the last 5 years and where we are expecting to be for this 23-24 upcoming year. So one of the things that you can see is during that 2021 year, there was a slight dip in enrollment, which was really something that happened statewide other than Florida Virtual School, who saw a large increase during that year. But overall, the entire state went down and Sarasota also noticed that. But you can see that the last 2 years, we have picked that back up and we are back in a positive trajectory, seeing increases in students both at our traditional public schools as well as charters and our scholarship students. So you can see, again, that dark blue at the bottom. Those are our elementary school enrollment forecasts. Moving up about 500 kids, 456 kids is what we're expecting that to increase at our schools, middle schools as well. That's the next block of orange, of about 35 students. The gray block are our secondary, our high school students, up about 184 is what we're projecting. And then the other goldenrod kind of color those are our district schools as well, which are our other schools. So Oak Park and Triad, those not your normal K-5 middle high. But you can see where you get to that gold bar again, we are in a good place in that those Sarasota County students continue to increase, not just the next two, which the 7,222, the next blue, are our charter schools, and then the top green are our scholarship students, which they merged, and now the McKay are all in with the FES scholarships. So again, those are our projections, kind of a highlight. If you go to the next two pages, so page 2 and 3 out of 16, you can see this same historical representation and projection broken down by the individual school level. And just to sort of highlight a few things, you can see at the elementary schools, most are staying very consistent with a slight increase, but we do have several schools that are seeing a pretty significant increase. Atwater is anticipated to increase by about 46 students, Glen Allen by just under 60 students, Lamarck by over 90 students, and as well as Taylor Ranch by about 73 students. So you can see that most of the growth we're seeing and expecting is happening at the south end of the county, which is where we're expecting to have some construction. So that's a positive as far as our planning goes. Middle schools tend to stay very similar, although we are seeing some growth more than normal in Heron Creek and at Sarasota Middle School. The high schools are our largest high school as far as growth is concerned, which is our largest high school period, is going to be Northport High, which is expecting an additional 83 students. So overall, again, we're seeing positive movement for our traditional schools, nothing that is concerning, and especially no true concerns as far as schools really losing student enrollment, which I know can happen a lot of times in districts. The next page, page 3 of 16, is again our enrollment for some of these other schools that don't fit in your traditional elementary, middle, high categories. And then you can see our scholarships, which is very difficult right now to forecast, because the FES scholarship, the Gardner scholarship, all those different options that parents have are relatively new. So we saw a huge growth, and now figuring out where that's tapered off, which it appears to be somewhat tapering off, but still there's a lot to be done with that forecast and figuring it out. So we are continuing to anticipate a large increase for our scholarship students, but fortunately, what happens, and we enroll those students, we report the FTE, and then the Department of Education removes those dollars from us before we even see them. So the impact to us, as far from a forecasting perspective individually, is not a major issue, because we will report those students that are getting scholarships, and then DOE will take the dollars before we get them. Again, we've got charter schools, which are historically estimate more students on their campuses than they receive. They're estimating an increase of about 500 kids. We have been working with them more so than we had in the past to make sure that we tighten up those estimates, those forecasts, and I think they've done a great job of getting them in something that's more realistic based on the last year or so that we've seen. Again, just with the scholarships, it's important to forecast them as accurately as we can, but they will be paid based on their actual enrollment. So again, the forecast number is important just to get us a starting point, but we will shore up that they get paid, again, based on the actual students on campus, not the forecasted amount.
I have a quick question. Do
Sure.
we get a after the fact report of not where those students would have been, like grade by grade when that scholarship? Do we?
Trying to think of by.
Do we get any? Do we get any kind of report after the fact? I mean, these are all projections. I get it, but at the end of the year, and certainly because if you look at these numbers and you don't in isolation. The reality is legislatively that there's been a broad expansion of scholarship opportunities for families, and to your point, that it appears it's tapered off. But as a district, to respond to that, it'd be great to know by what grade are they all kindergartners, or are they middle schoolers, or so is there a way that we can get that information? Not I mean, if you want to know the school, I'm just looking at where they fall within our K-12.
Sure, that is one of the things, our data department does a great job. They receive the lists from the school choice office of those students, and they have to key them in as though they were our own students so they do have that grade level. We can provide you that so you can see where they are. I'm not sure whether we know which schools they're coming from, which would also be a very interesting data point, but we can get that by grade level.
Mr. Edwards.
Yeah, along those lines, I know I've brought this up before, but I really am looking to find out on those scholarships in terms of when they leave us. I think we need to follow that up and to try and get feedback as to why, and also when they return, to get the feedback and as to why. So the comings and goings are really the place where I'm looking to capture that. I don't know that it necessarily is an accounting function, maybe just to capture it and then assign it elsewhere for follow-up, but it's important data.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Rose? Sorry, I opened up. I should have waited.
Nope,
now I'm taking notes.
Just along the same lines of pre-kindergarten, and we're growing those programs, and I'm very interested as we look at funding coming in. Are all of our pre-K programs funded through FTE dollars, student numbers, or do we have other funding for that? And what are those numbers and how are they growing? Because you've got us grand total on page 3 of 3, pre-K through 12th grade, obviously, with a prediction of roughly 48,000. I'm very interested in that being a new initiative and one that looks at supporting academic achievement being on grade level, kindergarten through the 3rd grade. How's that funding working? How are we funding our current programs? As well as looking forward to hearing how they're doing academically, given that's one of the primary purposes of getting them earlier. So how does the pre-K funding formula working in, because it's new, are our pre-Ks completely funded through the state dollars and or not, and where is that money coming from, and how does it divide up if it does? I don't know those answers.
Well, and I can give you an overview, but we will be talking about that when we come back and talk about the referendum dollars a little more in depth. There are just under 200 pre-K students that are included in this projection. Now, we've always been required to pull in or educate pre-K handicapped students, and I think at the age of 3, possibly it may be 4, that they are required to be educated through the school districts. Those students, so the pre-K handicapped students, are funded through the state, through the FEFP formula. They earn dollars just like the other regular K through 12 students earn dollars. I call it voluntary
pre-K,
but
yes.
we don't quite go through the voluntary pre-K program. So the pre-K that's been added is not funded through the state. What we have done is to start off the program, it's being funded through ESSER dollars or ARP dollars. and with the idea being that the referendum would fund moving forward. So again, we can talk more about that as we get to discussion about the referendum.
Well, I appreciate that. That's huge clarification for me and huge responsibility in that ESSER dollars are not sustainable, and we're bringing on these students that are in voluntary pre-K to give them a exceptionally, relatively speaking, strong foundation to be on grade level at third grade, which is a big factor for everyone's educational pathway. I'm not sure what the will of the board is. I would look to the chair. I would like to go a lot more in depth into pre-kindergarten, where we've invested in it, and how are we funding it? And, you know, for Dr. Cantalupo's department, what is the achievement showing us, particularly as we enter into the progress monitoring 2 piece, and how is it being funded, and the sustainability of that. I think those are huge catastrophic pieces for me as an individual, given third grade scores in reading in particular being the strongest indicator of every individual student's success in their academic career from that point on. So you know, I'm not sure, again, I look to the will of the board I would like to overemphasize when you bring forth these pieces, what are we doing with pre-K? Because it's not so much for me about what the referendum dollars are going to do, or the going away ESSER dollars, which for the public are relief funds that were given to us temporarily to support COVID. It's much more, again, about those students that we're making a commitment to. The results and the funding is huge.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe because I agree, and actually, well, I had a broader request, and again, it comes down to the time frame. But as we go through this budget processing, it's really important, particularly with ESSER, as we know that's limited non-recurring funds, and it was so substantial that, and especially when we're talking about positions and programs, is there a way, and that's a grant, it's one of many, is there and we could do a workshop around this, but where we would evaluate all of the grants that we currently have, what they're funding, what programs they're funding. There's always usually a tail, and then this may be a lot with our department that does grants as well. Usually, depending on how the grant's formatted, there is sometimes a commitment within the district as we progress X to year 5 or 4 that we're assuming that liability, assuming that particular program has hits X metrics. So now it's a little bit different than the pre-K, although it should be the same framework. And I'll let you get back to your regular presentation, sorry, but I think this is important before we make decisions, financial decisions. How is that something we could get to be presented? And I think it would fall right into what the pre-K, because I think looking at them in silos maybe not really get us to where we need to go. I think broadly looking at that, is that something?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just going to say I made note here. I will talk with Dr. Cantalupo and folks that are charged with leading those programs.
Okay, perfect. And would that satisfy? Okay, wonderful. All right. I apologize. You may continue.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So moving on, if we've talked about enrollment, if you get to page 4 of 16, you can see our FTE, which we just discussed. One of the reasons that enrollment is a little different from FTE. You can see the FTE forecast, which quite interestingly, I've been doing this for over 20 years, forecasting the FTE. We've always had a deadline by the state of December 1 to get the FTE in the last 3 to 4 years. Do you not have?
Which one? I was like, which one are you on? The green on its own?
Yes, it's got 2 green columns in it.
It's on its own.
So anyway, DOE has always had their forecasting portal open and had a deadline of approximately December 1st to get that done. They don't have the portal open yet. It keeps getting pushed back. So with that said, we have come up with what our enrollment is, which then goes forth to what our FTE forecast is. And again, you just brought up a good point as to why enrollment is different from FTE. But we get some pushback generally from Department of Education as to what we are submitting for our FTE. So you can see, again, this is a viewpoint looking at it. The top chart is by school type, and the bottom chart is by overall program level, which I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those differences. If you look in the first column, we have the 22-23 district final forecast, which is what the district submitted, which is where we are now. Last year, we submitted for 45,960 FTE. DOE wanted to bring that down, so after a lot of work with Department of Education, we kind of got to a little bit of a middle road where they allowed us to submit 45,637. But I tell you what, the team that does the forecasting did a great job, because if you look at that green, where we stand now, we are looking at having FTE of 46,012, which is very, very close to what we originally submitted and wanted to be funded on. Again, we will continue to be funded on what our actuals, but that fighting, or that little bit of rubbing with DOE to try to get our numbers is very important. So again, we're waiting on Department of Education to open up their forecasting module so that we can go ahead and start that process to get what we hope to have as our forecast. So again, where we stand now is this 46,012 number. Our initial forecast that we're hoping for the upcoming year is 47,803, which is about 17, almost 1,800 students more. There is a large increase, again, in charter schools. You can see that we're anticipating an increase in FTE of just over 500 students, and our increase in our family empowerment scholarships, which are, again, encompasses all our scholarship programs, is just a little over 360 students, where 900 of those we're anticipating to be our students at the district level. So again, this is important for us because, of course, this is where our funding comes from. Initially, there are a few of the categoricals that stay built or funded based on the initial forecast. They're not recalculated throughout the year. Fortunately, there are not many of those. So again, you can see where we are expecting increases in student population, and a significant portion of that is continuing to be at our district-funded traditional schools. The next piece, that next box down or chart down, I just wanted to show you, if you look at the very bottom, of course, in the left-hand column, we've added the program cost factors, so you can get an idea how some of these different programs are weighted. Specifically important are the ESE support level 4 and 5, your 254s and 5s. That's where you get the additional funding for those students with severe needs, with significant needs. But one of one other program that we've seen a lot of challenges with the last year is down at the bottom, our ESOL, which you can see we get about 20% additional funding for those ESOL students, and that's only earned for the courses that are, I believe it's just their core courses that we earn that in. Last year, we forecast about 1,624 students, which was consistent with years past. But if you look in that middle column where we stand now, 2,136 students. So we had a very significant increase in our ESOL students this year, which we do add allocations. We'll go over that in just a minute. We do add additional supports at the school level for those students. But there has been a very large increase in that population. And again, we'll see what Department of Education allows us, if they think that it's just a blip, or if they're going to allow us to push that up. We're going ahead and forecasting just 2,000 students. But again, that's where we're seeing some big increases.
So you're projecting it to go down?
Well, students do, I don't want to say age out of the program, but they do leave the program after a certain number of years. So there will be some migration out. And so we, I don't know that that's,
Well, not in a financial conversation, but this is bringing up a lot of very important components when we look at staffing. And this is certainly something I'm hearing from, and I can't be the only one, from members at, whether it be principals or different teachers, that and if you just watch the news, I mean, there's clearly a lot more people coming from that are English as a second language, and they have children, and we are mandated, of course, to educate them, and that so from not only financial standpoint of planning, from finding those staff that can do that, which is a different conversation, but a very important one, that writing all these workshops down, but from a financial standpoint. So I think from where you were saying going back and forth with DOE, I mean, is that do you believe that is a realistic number?
Well, so there's a couple of different things that you're talking about. So, of course, the funding piece from DOE is very important, and we will certainly see, one of the things that the forecasting module does is they have different forecasting, they call them modules, I believe. So they run the numbers based on live births in the county and transition, our normal hierarchy of whether, how we move students through, which ones we hold back, and things like that. So their models are going to come out and spit out some numbers, and we're going to try to get as close to this as we can, and again, based on our forecast. But going back to the way I was talking about the FES and the charters, we provide allocations to schools based on those actual numbers. So we have our 5-day count, and certain counts which are very important at the beginning of the year, where we shore up those numbers, and we're looking at actual students in seats and their needs. So yes, this is important because it is a piece of funding, and I won't get into the whole Group 2 cap unless you want me to get really nerdy on you. But so there are some reasons that we want to make that look a little bit higher, but from an educational and programmatic standpoint, we do allocate based on the students that truly do show up and have those needs.
Okay, and Mr. Edwards.
Thank you. The ESOL dollars, did they follow to the charter school?
Yes.
So if I look at Dreamers Academy, for example, their growth is pretty substantial, to your point of the movement of folks coming here with English as a second language. Does that account for the decline of ESOL dollars if it's moving to a charter school?
So I wouldn't call it moving. The way the charter FTE and payment work is we actually act as a mini Department of Education. We look at the FTE that has actually been earned by that charter school, and we calculate what the FEFP is that school has earned based on those specific categories and weightings of those students in those particular programs. So when you look at this ESOL and those 2,000 students, those are earned at district schools, and those are earned, some of those students are at charter schools. So the funding follows where that student is. So it's not that it's necessarily taking away because those students are no longer at our school or were not at our school. They're at a charter school. So the funding is earned where that student is being educated. Is that?
Yes, but all I was trying to get to was that if they age out, they go away. Is that the only reason, or does it go to because they move to a charter school? That's what I'm trying to.
I think it's aggregate. Is this aggregate all district-wise?
This is district total, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, we had hoped to have the DOE sanctioned forecast, but again, they have not opened up that portal, so we're still a little bit behind where we would like to be on the forecast. However, I don't think we're going to have any problems, getting them to agree to some of these increases, especially since they sort of lowballed us last year. Hopefully that will come into play. So this is where we are. And what's important about this, although we will get funded based on the actual student counts as they come through, of course, at this point in the game, we are using these numbers, especially at the school level, to determine the allocations, whether it be discretionary dollars that are allocated to the schools, or of course staffing allocations that go to the schools. So what I'm going to give you a high-level overview of are those allocation formulas, just so you can see how some of them come about. And then we can look more detailed at a later date, because we'll be bringing you back school by school, specifics and how those calculations, because again, at this point, we take those enrollment numbers and we run them through calculations to determine what the schools are earning. So, and you'll have to excuse me, I got this a little out of order, but if we could go to page 12 of 16. And it's a chart.
I don't know that,
line.
unless I'm wrong, or mine
Not
are
put-
different. I don't
not
think ours
put
are,
together
ours
that
are in
way.
little packets. So if you want to just show us the front page of the one
Okay,
you're talking about,
sorry.
we'll figure it
It's
out.
called School Discretionary Allocations for the fiscal year. And it's, the column, it starts off with weighted WFTE.
Yeah,
Yes,
we got it. Thank you.
yes. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So these are the dollar allocations that go to schools for discretionary purchases. This is where they purchase their classroom supplies. This is where they purchase, they pay for copy machines. The district funds a lot of the operational costs. So the district pays for utility bills, their insurance bills. District pays for most of their substitutes. So again, these are truly discretionary costs or dollars available to the schools. So you can see we start with a per FTE discretionary general fund that elementary schools earn $51, then middle schools get a little bit more, $55. We have a special column for Booker High because of the special needs of that school. They earn $90 per FTE, whereas the other high schools are earning $60 per student, whereas Pineview is kind of, because they are K through 12, they're kind of a middle of the road earnings. The ESE Center, those are where we support certain students that are private school, but we support them with ESE services, and they get just a lump sum amount of that $23,000. Again, Oak Park is a variety of students, not just not just elementary, middle. So they're earning $45 per student. Laurel Nokomis $55, and Triad $78, a little bit more because they're a smaller school. So it makes it more difficult to buy, for instance, a copy machine, when, pay for the lease of a copy machine if you don't have a little more significant dollar value. So again, and let me just back up a little bit as well. These dollar values have sort of evolved over time. And while we could go back and rebuild a lot of this, it is, it's sort of like steering a ship. You generally tweak a little bit here and there as you see that there are needs. So again, you can see the differences in what that base allocation is. And then there are some additional pieces that have been added on. $3 instructional materials, some capital dollars, $29 per student. Instrument repair, and I just bring that one up. We are proposing for the high schools, so this would be for the Booker High and the high school column, to raise that to $10 just because instrument replacement can be significant. So we thought we would bump that one a little bit. As well, again, you can see we provide some dollars for extracurricular transportation, athletic transportation, and we've got a column or a row that we are adding for athletic transportation when a school goes to an out-of-county playoff. And what we're doing is we're working with our athletics folks to figure out what that needs to look like. But in light of some of the wonderful things that were happening sports-wise at our schools, we thought it was important to provide some support for those. So again, we're waiting to sort of see what those estimates look like. And just to let you know, this one page is about $4 million. So it looks a little here and there, but it is a little bit of money there. And we feel that, again, this has been built over years and years, but we do allow schools to carry over these dollars. So we do feel that this is probably a good place to be, and we don't see any large gaps that we haven't, again, tried to address here. So again, you can see this is just a calculation based on those enrollment counts. Do we have a question, or should I?
Good.
I went more.
Mrs. Penner?
Yes.
I like the elementary school personnel allocations and how you've narrowed those down for middle and high school as well. And you referenced that in the future we'll have a particular school budget with these items on it. What I'm interested in, and I'm not sure where the rest of the board stands from a fiduciary responsibility standpoint, when you get down to those school budgets, how are those positions being funded? Because for me, we've moved into this world of what's sustainable, what's temporary, what's referendum, what's general dollars, and that is a huge decision-making process when we get in deeper into the whole budget and how I, as one individual, will vote for that. And then again, looking at the sustainability of positions that are there to support academic achievement, which is my focus. It's very important. So I just wanted my individual input of just not who gets how many assistant principals or guidance counselors, but where is that money coming from? Because that is very much relative to how the whole school budget moves for the whole entire county.
Correct, and that's what we're working on building, because, as you mentioned, these allocations, most of these are general fund positions. We have very few that are funded through the grant process, but that it will change depending on what as we move forward, especially with the pre-K.
I'm very much interested, though, in is it grant funding, is it ESSER, is it general? Regardless of how small it is, it's real important to me as far as my advocacy for what we do with the general funds.
Absolutely, absolutely. The only one that would really be merged into this would be your referendum, because the referendum does support, for instance, your arts programs and things that are allocated through this particular formula. So again, you moved right on, and I think you can see we've got very detailed allocation formulas. Moving forward, we really only had a few changes. One change specifically would be to the high school personnel allocations. It used to be you'd get one counselor per 400 students, and which meant before you got your second counselor, you had to have 800 students, which is a lot. So instead, we went ahead and changed that. That's on, page 16 of 16. So I'm sorry that didn't get there. That is going to be changed to where there are a minimum of 2 counselors per high school. So again, so that you can spread that out and have a little bit more depth in coverage for those smaller schools.
And are those referendum dollars or general dollars? Or?
The counselors are generally funded from referendum dollars.
Okay.
Mr. Edwards, I know you had a question.
The data that Ms. Rose seems to be looking for, I know already exists. When we allocated and we did hires with ESSER dollars, I just don't know where it is now that the superintendent is no longer here, but it was a combination of HR and budget allocations and how the money was being spent for the hires that we did last year. So I know that data already exists, and so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I would suggest that we go back into our files and pull that, because now that we don't have that superintendent to rely on, we have to find a way to get it at the board level and with the interim superintendent in the meantime, but it's already there.
It was something, there was a chart with the positions that were added, and basically, my understanding was if it was related to the strategic plan, it was funded from ESSER. However, there were some changes to personnel that were made outside of that. But I absolutely agree that, you know, moving forward in regards to the 23-24 budget, we want to make sure we're clear.
Yeah, and to your point, I think it was a spreadsheet. I remember, but
Yes.
but we did do some tweaking to it, and I think, and I'm not sure if I'm saying the same thing, because I think a lot of that was pre-K, but from a larger scale, because there are other programs that are funding, or grants that are funding, and sometimes they're long-term positions or what have you. And I think that if we could tie those in together, based on what we said before.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that was one of the things I didn't, you know, this was mainly today talking about schools and students and schools allocations. But when we did the zero-based budgeting process, we asked any departments that had positions that were funded through ESSER, okay, what's the disposition? What is going to happen to those positions? We know we still have this year and next year with those positions, but what is the intent moving forward? So we hope to have that able to be presented to you as well. So we have a couple of, you know, again, we're workshopping you. And so the February and the March workshops, we're hoping to bring, again, referendum information, some more specific allocation information, and anything that happens in the legislature that might help us make some decisions. But, you know, possibly I know it's a little ways off, but we don't have one at this point scheduled for April. So perhaps in April we can pull that together. And again, the allocations by school that we're looking at, we had already developed some funding source information in that, so that you may be seeing some of that in February, March, just depending on how we like it, since we're building something a little new. And then, but maybe we can bring it all together in April.
You're right on target. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
Okay, perfect. And that's where we are today. So again, I just, you know, hope everyone feels comfortable reaching out if there are some specifics that you look for, because I want to make sure everybody is very comfortable moving into this budget cycle. And anything that we can do to tweak or give you more information, any individual questions, we are more than happy to answer and bring back if we want to bring it back in this type of form.
Thank you. I want to commend you for, I know you came in at the kind of the end. I mean, it's a long, ongoing process, and our finance team does an amazing job all together, but I appreciate you responding to some of the questions, both public and board members, and providing that information, because you have a lot to do. So I really appreciate that. Are there any comments, any other ones? I think we did that throughout it, so thank you for bearing with us.
Okay, thank you.
That's it, thank you. And moving on to one more before we break for a brief lunch is the calendar committee. Mrs. Schweid and Dr. Foster.
Do I have permission to approach and provide you information that we collected? Is that
Yeah.
okay? All right.
I feel like a judge. Permission to approach. No. Oh, no. Thank you. I know, it's okay.
Someone left their Starbucks. I might take it.
Right?
So if you all remember, as a refresher, on December 13th, we asked for permission to advertise the student calendars, and you all granted that to us. And so we provided the public with an email address to provide responses to the calendars. And so what you have in front of you, and what I also put back there, is a graph 2 years ago when we did this, it was the first time that we provided a graph. And honestly, Bridget said, Danielle, I really like the graph. It was super helpful. So we did it again.
Visual.
So we summarized, and I'd be neglectful if I didn't say that Sean Dash, who came in with me, was instrumental in helping collect the data. And so I asked him to come with us today. He's one of our great HR folks. We have summarized the data for you. We received 112 comments to the email address over the course of the 30 days. To be very frank with you, that is not a lot of comments given the number of parents and students we have in our district. 2 years prior, we'd received 141, and 2 years prior to that, just a couple more than that. So this encapsulates all of the themes that we saw. We had 10 people just let us know that they liked the calendar. They had nothing additional really to add. They liked the calendar. The key things that we saw that were somewhat of concern, we had 27 folks talk about hoping for more time prior to winter break. And it wasn't a lot of time. The key comments were wanting to travel, and it costs a lot of money to fly out so late. We also heard suggestions to move winter break back a week to provide more time prior to Christmas. The comments tended to be Christmas forward, I'll be honest with you, regarding winter break. So we had suggestions to shorten the Thanksgiving break in order to allow for an extended winter break so folks could travel longer. You know, these are the types of things that we hear. So again, changing the winter break timeframe was our highest response rate. We had folks let us know, 17 folks disliked the start date of school not being on a Monday, but we also heard from folks that did like it not being on a Monday. Well, and that's what the calendar committee, who is charged with providing insight, also speaks to, is that many teachers like the coming in midweek, so students can find their footing at all levels, and then come Monday they start with academics and instruction. So I'm happy to answer anything you have. I've got tremendous feedback for you. I guess I just don't want to spend tremendous time unless you want me to explaining the graph.
My only question, so I don't see anyone, we did add we changed it where professional days as hurricane makeup days. That's been changed. That's correct, right?
So let me speak to that. Thank you for
'Cause I don't
bringing that
see
up.
it,
So we asterisked on the calendars that professional days may be used as hurricane days, but we did get feedback about that. And we had, I think, 10 responses, 5 of whom we could determine right or wrong that they were from our own people because it came from our email addresses. I mean, obviously they emailed us from SarasotaCountySchools.net. Teachers that I'm presuming they were teachers of the 5 that they would prefer that the professional days, 5 of them, not be identified as hurricane days.
Yeah, no, I thought we changed, I'm sorry, I thought we changed that. I thought we
It was
voted-
up for discussion. We had said, I don't think we voted one way or the other. I thought we were making that determination.
No, it was amended. We did vote.
Fair. I apologize.
So it was, right, because it was that workshop, and then I'd have to go back to the record, but it was that workshop, and then it was changed where we added 2 weeks to the end of the last of the school year so that we were not using PD days as the buffer, that it
Okay.
was to let everyone know if have to, these are the areas we'll be adding additional days, not dip into referendum, not dip into PD. So mark your calendar and travel plans accordingly, so it's not in retrospect, because that's always puts us in that corner that is an unwinnable situation. So
we will remove what we asterisked as the professional days may be used as hurricane. I did know that we also had discussed the 2 weeks. I thought we were doing both, so that was my error.
But I just want to make sure that it's marked so that we were adding, I'm sorry, I'm looking here, this is 23, so that the last day of school is the 24th, and that, again, as unideal as it is, and these are just contingency days, May 28th through, what was it, June 7th?
Yes.
Were the additional buffer days.
Yes.
Those would be whatever we call them, hurricane days, inclement weather days. I don't want to, don't
Yes.
make it too narrow. So if it's not a hurricane and it's a tropical storm.
I think we'll do
somebody said-
inclement weather. Fair.
Just kidding.
Okay.
Makeup days, exactly. So, but that we were not going to take away PD because those are important.
Yes, okay, thank you for that. And I will make that correction and make it more evident. So we let me think for just a minute. Okay, so the only other thing I did want to bring to your attention, because there seemed to be some conversation about Veterans Day, we only received 2 emails from folks noting that they would like Veterans Day off. And remember, and I say it every year, there's a large group of veterans that were spoken to several years ago that said they felt that having school on Veterans Day was more important because we could teach about the importance of it. And so I guess I feel like it's really important to say that hopefully we're hearing what our public is asking, and that there were only 2 responses requesting Veterans Day off of those that we heard from. Can I answer other questions for anybody?
I'll add one more since, again, please jump in. One thing, again, that the prefer, and again, I think it's interesting when I talk about the calendar, there's a lot of, it's ebb and flow. It's almost, you'll appease one area and then it'll kind of cause a not so great response elsewhere. So I do believe there's a lot of thought. I did hear a lot about the winter break, and not, being that we're not looking at it from a religious holiday aspect, but that the time of frame of year, the beginning of the new year. But my concern was, I remember years ago with the calendar, the one time we got tons of comments was when we changed the semester. And so is that having enough days to conclude the semester before winter break? Is that why we are bumping in so late? So I think that's an important point to make up. It's not, that was a very laborious, if you recall. So that's where we are now. We end our semester where other districts don't sometimes, and they move into next year. So I think so it's not as easy as just saying we want to respond to that. We are going to, we would not be able to finish our semester if we bumped it up, I guess is my question, academically.
We did work the days so that we can conclude our second quarter prior to winter break, because otherwise it pushes us over the winter break, and then students, there was tremendous pushback because of the stress and because our seniors that could theoretically graduate early couldn't graduate early. So there was a couple factors that were taken in years ago that would hold true still.
Gotcha. No, and I think that's important to note, because I hear that wants more time before winter break, but there's an academic reason as to why we're pushing that.
Which is also why we start as early as we do when some people wish to start later, and it's so we could fit that in properly. And we go by statute, which allows us to start no sooner than August 10th.
And I think one other thing to note, because I think the only other time to potentially get extra days, which Danielle shared, would have been over the Thanksgiving break. And we had looked at the data going back. I know I was the principal at the time, and the lost instruction time because the absences on those days. So that's why I think the committee had kind of leaned toward taking that week off, and then it pushed it back a little bit. But student attendance is better based on that.
No, but good point. I mean, they're driven by the academic and historical data. Mr. Renoff.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just 2 quick questions, Danielle. One, the miscellaneous comments?
So the miscellaneous comments were quite random. Some had to do with our superintendent and who might that be, and our previous they had very little to do with the calendar.
Got it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The only other question I had was in October, I noticed the end of the quarter, the first quarter is on the 12th, which is a Thursday, but yet the professional day doesn't fall until the following Monday, when with the other 2 times, the end of the semester or the end of the quarter, the professional day follows immediately following that. I was just wondering what the rationale was there.
And that would require me to completely remember the conversation, and I'm drawing a blank. Let me think for just a minute. Mr. Renoff, I don't think I can answer that quickly. Hold on. Sean, do you remember?
It's October FTE week.
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
so when we had it as a professional day, we only had 4 days for students to be in attendance. So
the thought was to move it back to the following week. Gives us one extra day to potentially get those students in that week.
Got it.
Yes, the ESE department had asked us to try to maximize student attendance that week, yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anything else?
I have nothing. Are there any member comments? Do we need to re-advertise this or do we advertise the additional day with just the PD/weather days?
We're fine. Yes, we don't need to re-advertise. You're not changing the student attendance days, and we had already noted earlier. I will look to see that the superintendent has a right to identify whatever days he or she chooses to be hurricane days without it getting approval from the calendar or a community per statute and by our
Contract.
yes.
It's
So
ready. It's lunchtime. No, okay, don't
Yeah.
worry.
I need that coffee.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, well, it's just as long as we note it publicly so that people know. I think the one of the main purposes, at least from where I was coming from, but I think for all of us, is that we're providing advance notice to staff and the public that if they're going to, those are contingently going to be work. Yeah, we live in Florida, so just making sure that's clearly communicated. But aside from that, I have no more comments. Anyone else?
Thank
Thank you very much for all of your work, and we are going to break and reconvene at 1 o'clock. So a shorter lunch, I apologize, but got a lot done. Thank you.